Chapter 2040. Seeing that the Thunder Emperor had made up his mind, they stopped trying to persuade him. Moreover, both true immortal Zhangye and Feng Zi knew that the Thunder Emperor had to leave the divine firmament immortal realm to have a chance at survival. If he stayed here, he would die without a doubt. Although the Thunder Emperor had made up his mind, he did not leave immediately. He only looked at true immortal Zhangye and Feng Zi quietly, unwilling to part with them. He and Feng Zi had just met. If not for the situation, he would not have made the decision to leave. True immortal Zhangye said, "I didn't expect that we would have to part again after 400,000 years of separation. Don't worry. I'll try to live a few more years and help you take care of Zi." "Thank you, brother." The Thunder Emperor nodded. True immortal Zhangye took out a jar of strong liquor from his storage bag, opened the mud seal, and prepared to pour a few bowls to bid farewell to the Thunder Emperor. "Drinking from bowls is too pretentious." The Thunder Emperor waved his hand and said, "Take out 4 jars, one for each of us." "All right," True immortal Zhangye said. "Other than you, I don't think anyone else will drink with me in the future." As he spoke, he took out 3 jars of strong liquor and gave them to Su Zimo and Feng Zi. "Come, brother Su." The Thunder Emperor looked at Su Zimo and raised his wine jar, declaring loudly, "Senior Thunder Emperor." Su Zimo quickly picked up the jar. The Thunder Emperor's expression stiffened. "Brother Su, why are you still calling me senior? You're treating me like an outsider. You and I are congenial. You can just call me big brother." "How can I?" Su Zimo quickly refused. Whether it was in Tianhuang, the upper world, or in terms of cultivation, the Thunder Emperor was his senior. Feng Zi frowned as well. If Su Zimo was on the same level as the Thunder Emperor, wouldn't she have to lower her head for no reason? The Thunder Emperor laughed loudly. He pressed down on Su Zimo's shoulder and said, "Those seniority rules are all bullshit. I Feng Cantian don't even care about them. If I like them, I'll be friends with them. If you don't like it, so what if you're an immortal emperor? Brother Su, if you don't mind, then drink this jar of wine." When Su Zimo heard the Thunder Emperor's heroic words, his blood and chi surged as he shouted, "All right, big brother Feng, I salute you." True immortal Zhangye and Feng Zi raised their wine jars as well. The wine jars of the 4 men collided with each other, producing a crisp sound. They raised their heads and drank heartily. The 4 of them knew that after this jar of strong liquor, everyone would leave. The heaven realm was vast, and the future was boundless. In the future, the 4 of them might not have the chance to meet again. The 4 of them didn't stop until they finished the jug of wine in one gulp. Normally speaking, with Su Zimo's cultivation, ordinary wine would not make him feel drunk at all. However, after drinking this jar of strong liquor, Su Zimo actually felt his cheeks turn slightly red and his head become dizzy. Feng Zi couldn't hold on any longer. Her face was red, and she was about to collapse. "Ha ha ha ha." The Thunder Emperor laughed loudly and praised Su Zimo. To be able to drink this jar of wine and not get drunk, what powerful qi. One had to know that the strong liquor that true immortal Zhangye collected was not ordinary. Even with their cultivation, they would feel slightly tipsy after drinking it. "Brother Su." The Thunder Emperor heavily patted Su Zimo's shoulder and said with a faint smile, "We can talk as equals, but you can't take advantage of my granddaughter. Between the 2 of you, it's still your own business." Su Zimo had a feeling that the Thunder Emperor's words had a deeper meaning to them. However, he was still a bit dizzy and couldn't think too much. He just subconsciously said, "Of course. Let's go." The Thunder Emperor took a deep breath, and his eyes regained their clarity. He stood at the top of the mountain and turned his head to look at the rivers and mountains below. He said in a serious tone, "There will be a day when I, Feng Cantian, will openly step onto this land." With that, the Thunder Emperor's body flashed with lightning, and he disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Su Zimo stood on the mountain peak. Qinglian's bloodline kept surging, and the breeze on the mountain peak woke her up. "What are your plans?" True immortal Zhangye asked. "Do you want to come with us?" Su Zimo thought for a moment and shook his head. "Forget it. I've experienced too much in the past year. I'm going to find a place to cultivate in seclusion." "That's good." True immortal Zhangye nodded and said, Be careful and don't expose your identity. Also, try not to use that cauldron of yours in the future. Thank you for the reminder, Senior. Su Zimo thanked him. True Immortal Zongye handed over a black token that was 2 fingers wide. A dagger surrounded by lightning was drawn on it. This is a token. If you see the same symbol somewhere, you can find the people of Qingyi. Su Zimo took the token and thanked him again. True Immortal Zongye nodded and held Feng Zi, who was still drunk, as they disappeared into the void. Su Zimo didn't stay on the mountain peak and went down. In the sky above the soaring Dragon Mountain range, a huge crack suddenly appeared, revealing the dark tunnel inside. A figure walked out with one hand behind his back. His expression was calm, and his every movement exuded the aura of a royal family. His eyes were like jewels in the deep sea, deep and mysterious. Prince Jin, Prince Ungshi. Prince Jin came to the sky above soaring Dragon Mountain range, and looked at the ruined battlefield, and the naked man's corpse. His expression turned cold. Yuanzhua Mirror Moon. Prince Jin suddenly said, "Those who are still alive come to soaring Dragon Mountain range." Prince Jin's voice wasn't loud, but it spread for thousands of miles. Prince Yuanzhua and True Immortal Mirror Moon, who were running away, both trembled. At the same time, they heard a rumor about Prince Jin in their minds. Hiss! 1,000-mile sound transmission technique. The two of them didn't dare to hesitate. They quickly turned around and headed towards soaring Dragon Mountain range. Soon they arrived at the mountain range. At the same time, another space tunnel appeared in the sky. Prince Tianxing walked out with a murderous look on his face. "Where is he?" Prince Tianxing asked in a deep voice. "Where is he?" Prince Jin was expressionless. He looked at Prince Yuanzhua and True Immortal Mirror Moon calmly and asked softly. Prince Yuanzhua and True Immortal Mirror Moon couldn't take the pressure and knelt down. "Big brother, please forgive me." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua could be arrogant and bossy in front of others, but in front of the Crown Prince of King Jin, he was as obedient as a child. Prince Yuanzhua knew his big brother's methods the best. Originally, I had already planned everything, and I could definitely suppress Feng Cantion. But who knew that Su Zimo would appear? Before Prince Yuanzhua could finish his explanation, Prince Jin interrupted him. "Where is he?" Prince Jin only said 2 words, and his voice became softer and softer. At this moment, Prince Yuanzhua was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. Chapter 2041. Escaped. Duke Yuanzhua's voice was trembling. He was sweating profusely, and did not dare to look at the Crown Prince. "Very good." The Crown Prince nodded and looked at Duke Yuanzhua. He asked, "You should know who Feng Cantion is, right?" "Yes, I know." Duke Yuanzhua nodded. "You should know how Feng Cantion's escape will affect the Dajin Celestial Kingdom, right?" The Crown Prince asked again. His tone was calm, and one could not tell if he was happy or angry. "I know." Duke Yuanzhua swallowed his saliva. After a short pause, the Crown Prince's gaze suddenly became extremely sharp. It was like a sharp knife that could pierce through Duke Yuanzhua's chest. "Since you know everything, why didn't you inform me about this earlier?" Prince Jin's voice contained a trace of power that made one's heart palpitate. I. Duke Yuanzhua's face was pale and his body was trembling. He raised his head and tried to explain. "Feng Cantion is already severely injured. I wanted to suppress him and hand him over to Big Brother." "Nonsense." The Crown Prince of Prince Jin suddenly shouted, and waved his sleeves. An invisible force surged out, and hit the Commandery Prince of Yuanzhua's body heavily across the air. Bang! Duke Yuanzhua was sent flying over 100 feet away. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and lay on the ground like a dead dog. The Crown Prince's attack had broken more than half of his bones. He almost fainted from the pain. "Yuanzhua, you are still spouting nonsense in front of me." The Crown Prince's expression was cold. He said coldly, "You just want to take the credit. You want to show off in front of father. You want to suppress me." Who was the Crown Prince? He was originally ranked 7th among the many heirs. However, he was ruthless, decisive and had extraordinary talent. He had climbed to the top step by step. His 6 older brothers who were ranked before him had all died for various reasons. Only then did Prince and ascend to the position of Crown Prince. Everyone in the royal family knew that Prince An had something to do with the deaths of the 6 princes. As for the crown prince, he only turned a blind eye to this matter. Prince Jean had many heirs, and he was even happy to see this situation. Only in this way could there be a truly ruthless person, an expert who stood out from the many princes to inherit his throne and the endless territory under his command. The crown prince of King Jean had been through too much bloodshed. Commandery Prince Yuan's intentions could not be hidden from him. "Big brother, spare me, spare me." Commandery Prince Yuanzwa crawled slowly towards the crown prince of Prince Jean. He coughed up blood as he begged for mercy. Tianqing King was expressionless as he stood at the side with his hands behind his back. He had seen too many open and covert struggles between the princes. He was only loyal to Prince Jean and would never interfere. Seeing Commandery Prince Yuanzwa's pitiful look, Lord Jin's crown prince showed no pity at all. He didn't care about blood ties or brotherly ties at all. Moreover, the two of them only had the same father but different mothers. "I can understand that you want to make a contribution and stand out," the crown prince of Jean said coldly. "But you shouldn't be so ignorant. Big brother, Yuanzwa knows his mistake." Most of the bones in Commandery Prince Yuanzwa's body were shattered. He crawled on the ground, covered in dust, and was in a sorry state. With the crown prince of Jin's attack, his blood vessels could not heal in a short time. More than a year ago, Feng Cantion escaped from Juele City, which was under your jurisdiction. "I didn't punish you," the crown prince of Jin continued. "I didn't expect you to act on your own accord and commit such a big mistake." True Deity Mirror Moon looked at Commandery Prince Yuanzwa and sighed in her heart. She knew that if she did not stand out and say something, the crown prince of Jin would take his anger out on her, and might even lose her life here. "Your Highness, please allow me to say a few words," True Deity Mirror Moon said in a low voice. This time, the crown prince of Yuanzwa's preparations were foolproof. He even invited True Deity Fei Yin from the Imperial Wind Monastery to deal with Feng Cantion. In fact, Feng Cantion was severely injured by the crown prince and Tianqing King. He couldn't withstand a single blow, and couldn't withstand our attacks. Who would have thought? True Deity Mirror Moon told the story of how Su Zimo gave the 7 Dawn immortal ginseng, and how True Deity Zhangye appeared. "This is the process. Your Highness, please give us a way out, and allow us to atone for our crimes." True Deity Mirror Moon kowtowed and begged. The crown prince of Jin's gaze moved between True Deity Mirror Moon and Commandery Prince Yuanzwa. He remained silent. Heaven and earth fell into a deathly silence. To Commandery Prince Yuanzwa and True Deity Mirror Moon, every breath was as long and unbearable as thousands of years. Their lives were in the hands of the crown prince of Jin. "Scram," the crown prince of Jin said indifferently. "From now on, I don't want to hear any news about King Yi in the territory of the great Jin celestial nation." Of course. Commandery Prince Yuanzwa was overjoyed. He knew that since the crown prince of Jin had said this, his little life could be considered saved. "Thank you, Your Highness." True Deity Mirror Moon kowtowed again and said, "From now on, I will do anything to repay Your Highness for not killing me." The Heavenly Punishment King looked on coldly and didn't say a word, but he nodded in his heart. The crown prince of Jin didn't kill Commandery Prince Yuanzwa, because Commandery Prince Yuanzwa wasn't a threat to him. After today, Commandery Prince Yuanzwa wouldn't dare to do anything in front of him. The crown prince of Jin also took True Deity Mirror Moon as his subordinate. Seeing that the matter was settled, the Heavenly Punishment King said slowly, "Your Highness, let's go after Feng Cantion first. Feng Cantion has the help of the 7 Dawn immortal ginseng. He just needs to rest for a while, and his injuries will be healed. By then, it won't be easy to surround him. Let's go." The crown prince of Jin nodded and waved his hand in front of him. The space in front of him was torn apart like a piece of cloth by the crown prince of Jin's hand, revealing a dark and deep space tunnel. The crown prince of Jin flashed in and disappeared. The Heavenly Punishment King followed closely behind. The crack in the sky slowly healed, and the terrifying pressure that lingered above the soaring Dragon Mountain range also dissipated. True Deity Mirror Moon let out a long breath. A gentle breeze blew, and his whole body was cold. Unknowingly, his clothes were already soaked in sweat. "Your Highness, how is it?" True deity Mirror Moon quickly went forward and helped Commandery Prince Yuanzui up. She took out a few spiritual pills and fed them to him. Commandery Prince Yuanzui's face was extremely gloomy, and his eyes were filled with endless hatred. He gritted his teeth and said, "Mirror Moon, gather all the forces in Cyan Cloud County and search for the rest of Qinye's gang. Kill without mercy. The most important thing is to search for that Su Zimo. If I don't tear him into pieces and burn his bones to ashes, I won't be able to vent the hatred in my heart." Commandery Prince Yuanzui's face was ferocious, and he was so angry that his teeth were about to shatter. Also, Commandery Prince Yuanzui said again, "Send this warrant to the other counties and ask them to help search for him. I want Su Zimo to have no place to hide in the territory of the Great Jin Dynasty. Those who provide clues will be heavily rewarded. Even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground, you have to find him." Chapter 2042. After Su Zimo left the mountain, he was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he used the Trijewel Jade Rui to change his appearance. As long as Duke Yuanzui and true immortal Mirror Moon were still alive, they would definitely not let the matter rest. Given Duke Yuanzui's status and power, he would definitely take revenge on him. If he continued to walk around with his original appearance, he would definitely be targeted. Su Zimo pondered for a while and changed into an ugly burly man. He had a majestic figure and wore coarse hemp clothes. His chest was half exposed, and he carried a wine jar in his hand. His drunken eyes were half closed. Su Zimo walked a few steps unsteadily. When he felt that there were no flaws, he walked toward Songyu City, which was the nearest city. There were more than 100 cities under the jurisdiction of Sun Moon County. Every city had a large territory under its jurisdiction. Although it was the closest to Songyu City, Su Zimo still took more than 3 days to reach the gates of the city. Carrying the wine jar, Su Zimo looked at the city gates with sleepy eyes and staggered in. When the guards at the city gates saw the disgusting burly man who reeked of alcohol, they looked disgusted and refused to take another look. The guards on both sides waved their hands casually and allowed Su Zimo to enter the city. Su Zimo was secretly delighted. He had changed his appearance because of this consideration. The more disgusted others were, the less they would pay attention to him. Su Zimo did not wander around the city. Instead, he headed straight for the teleportation formation in the city. He had to leave the Dajin Celestial Nation as soon as possible. Although he had the Trijewel Jade Rui, this treasure might not be able to protect him. He would only be truly safe when he left the territory of the Dajin Celestial Nation. The Dajin Celestial Nation was vast. With his cultivation, if he wanted to travel by himself, even if there were no obstacles, it would take him hundreds or even thousands of years. Moreover, he did not know what dangers he would encounter if he was alone. These hundreds of years, even thousands of years, would have been wasted in vain. Using the teleportation formation to leave was the fastest way. After about 2 hours, Su Zimo had passed through more than half of the city and arrived at the teleportation array. A large crowd had gathered in front of the teleportation array, blocking the entrance of the hall. It was a hubbub of voices. Su Zimo looked into the distance and saw that there were dozens of guards standing guard at the entrance of the hall. They were carefully examining every cultivator who wanted to enter the hall. These guards were all Earth Immortals. Behind these dozens of people, there were 2 people sitting on chairs. Their eyes were like torches as they surveyed the crowd. Their auras were terrifying. These 2 people were most likely celestial immortals. What's going on? Why is it suddenly so strict? Haven't you heard? Something big happened in Cyan Cloud County. What is it? I heard it was the supreme true immortal Feng Cantillon, from 400,000 years ago. He managed to escape from the 10 Extremes prison with the help of his remaining subordinates. Now, they are all searching for the remaining members. Someone at the side said in a low voice. I even heard that Duke Yuanzui of Azure Cloud County had painstakingly cultivated a clone, but it was crippled by someone called Su Zimo, and he suffered a huge loss. That's right. I heard that anyone who can provide clues about this Su Zimo will be rewarded handsomely. Trivial discussions could be heard from the crowd in front. Su Zimo blinked. He did not expect the news to spread so quickly. He was still a step too late. What's going on in front? Why are some Stage 1 Earth immortals being brought to the 2 celestial immortals to be checked again? Someone asked in a low voice. Su Zimo focused his attention. Among the crowd, any Stage 1 Earth immortals would be singled out by the guards on both sides of the hall. The 2 celestial immortals would check the storage bags of the Stage 1 Earth immortals, then let the Stage 1 Earth immortal's primordial spirit escape in front of them. Su Zimo frowned slightly. His ears twitched. Not long after, he heard a few words. What are we doing? Why are we watching these Stage 1 Earth immortals? I heard that Su Zimo is a Stage 1 Earth immortal, but this person knows the art of shape-shifting and can change his appearance. How is that possible? I'm not sure. But even if he can shapeshift, he can only change his physical body, not his primordial spirit. So, as long as he shows his primordial spirit, we will know if this person is Su Zimo. Su Zimo's expression was solemn. He quietly retreated from the crowd. This was not good. He had wanted to use the Sanyu Jade Rui to disguise himself and leave. But now, the teleportation formation was being checked so carefully. If he went forward, he would be exposed even with the Sanyu Jade Rui. This was a dead end. Su Zimo did not dare to take the risk, and was prepared to leave Tsangyu City. Given the current situation, there was a high chance that the entire city would be on lockdown. By then, even if he wanted to leave the city, it would be difficult for him to do so. Su Zimo headed towards the city gates. Before long, a group of Tsangyu city guards appeared in midair. They spread out, and each of them held a painting in their hands. One of the guards descended not far away from Su Zimo and walked to the city wall. He opened the painting in his hands and pasted it. On the painting, there was a figure in green robes with a handsome face. It was none other than Su Zimo. There were a few lines of words written at the bottom of the painting. The gist of it was that anyone who could provide clues about this person would be rewarded handsomely. Su Zimo knew that he had already changed his appearance, and that he would not be discovered unless he revealed his primordial spirit. However, he still felt a little guilty when he saw the painting. I can't stay here for long. When he saw the guard beside him turn around, Su Zimo raised his head and gulped down a mouthful of strong liquor. He burped and staggered out of the city. Not long after, he disappeared into the crowd. After leaving the city, Su Zimo checked the map and headed east. He walked for 2 days. Along the way, he would occasionally see a group of immortal soldiers from the Dajin Immortal Kingdom searching everywhere. Su Zimo relied on the Sanyu Rui to change his appearance. He had yet to encounter a situation where he had to reveal his primordial spirit and was not in danger. However, this situation would not last long. Su Zimo was also lamenting in his heart. All the lands in the world belonged to the royal family. He had offended Duke Yuanzhua, a member of the royal family of the Dajin Immortal Kingdom. As long as he was in this land, there was almost no place for him. Even if he found a mountain range and opened up a cave abode in seclusion, it would be difficult for him to continue cultivating. There would definitely be people who would find his location. Right then, a few cultivators were walking in a group in the forest beside him. They seemed to be mystic immortals. There were 2 rank 9 mystic immortals, 3 rank 8 mystic immortals, and 2 rank 7 mystic immortals. Brother Liu, do you think the astral sect will accept us? Among them, a young cultivator asked. Another older cultivator said in a deep voice, "It should be possible. The astral sect is only a mystic sect. We still have a chance." Astral sect. Su Zimo murmured in thought. Chapter 2043. The city lord of Longyuan City, Su Shi, had once told Su Zimo that the major sects in the divine firmament celestial domain could be roughly divided into 3 levels. Mystic, earth and heaven. There were only 4 sky-level sects in the divine firmament celestial domain: Mountain Sea Sect, Imperial Wind Monastery, Heaven and Earth Academy, and Flying Celestial Sect. Back in the abyss on Longyuan planet, Su Zimo's primordial spirit had entered the dragon corpse and reincarnated. He had come into contact with the elites of these sections. The patriarch of a sky-level sect was an immortal king. Below the heaven level was the earth level. The patriarch of an earth-level sect was usually a perfected immortal. The most common ones were the mystic sections. The patriarch's cultivation was usually a sky immortal. The astral sect was a mystic sect. Su Zimo thought to himself, if he had to hide and be scared out of his wits, it would be better to hide in a sect and cultivate. Mystic sects like this were too common in the Great Jin celestial nation. Even if Duke Yuanzhua chased him all over the place, it was impossible for him to search every disciple in a mystic sect. The guards of the Great Jin celestial nation, guarding the major cities and fortresses, were already at their limit. It was impossible for them to run into a mystic sect and search wantonly. The most they could do was to pass down a wanted notice. The most important thing for Su Zimo, now, was to cultivate in seclusion and raise his cultivation level. He had come out of the elemental spirit mine, entered the 10 Extremes prison, and entered the Arch tomb. He had experienced many battles and witnessed too many fights between elites. He had narrowly escaped death along the way. These experiences were his most precious experiences. Moreover, he had casually picked up along the way and accumulated a large number of spirit pills, elemental spirit stones, and other cultivation resources in his storage bag. He had just broken through to the first level of the mystic Ian realm. As long as he had enough resources and time, his cultivation level could continue to improve without encountering too many obstacles. Most importantly, Su Zimo's gains for the past year were way too great. Breaking through to the mystic Ian realm was secondary. He had obtained the Void Lightning Manual in the 10 Extremes prison. Although he had directly inherited the Thunder Emperor's legacy and could comprehend many parts without cultivating, there were still some insights that he needed to comprehend on his own. In the Imperial Tomb, the third side of the prison-suppressing cauldron was repaired. The Black Tortoise Saint Soul had imparted a secret technique to him, but he had yet to cultivate it. He hadn't comprehended the Nirvana Sutra on the third cauldron wall either. There was also the mysterious 3 gems Rui Scepter. This treasure that accompanied Qinglian's true body had countless uses. So far, Su Zimo had only discovered one of these abilities. If he wanted to cultivate these techniques and comprehend their profundities, he would need a long period of secluded cultivation. The path of cultivation was long and arduous. Even if one had great luck, unlimited opportunities, and outstanding talent, it was impossible to achieve success overnight. Although the level of the Stellar Gate was not high, it was suitable for Su Zimo to lay low and wait for the right opportunity. Thinking of this, Su Zimo carried the wine jar and flew in the air, swaying towards the people who were talking just now. Hey, you guys over there. Before he got close, Su Zimo shouted from afar, reeking of alcohol as he cursed. Mother ***, I'm talking about you guys. Now that he had changed his appearance, he had to change his words and actions as well, so that no one could see through him. The few cultivators over there raised their heads and saw an ugly cultivator who reeked of alcohol walking over from afar. All of them revealed looks of disgust. However, the older cultivator among them had a calm expression as he whispered, "This is an earth immortal. Everyone, be careful and don't anger him. Greetings, exalted immortal." The older cultivator stopped and bowed towards Su Zimo. Although the other young cultivators were unwilling, they bowed one after another as well. Su Zimo looked at the few people on the ground with a drunken gaze. With an arrogant expression, he burped and asked, "How do I get to the Stellar Gate?" The few young cultivators, especially the female cultivators, lowered their heads in disgust, unwilling to even look at Su Zimo. The older cultivator, however, chuckled. "Exalted immortal, follow this path and head east for more than 2,000 li. You'll reach the Stellar Gate. There are 7 mountains in the Stellar Gate that are the most eye-catching and easy to identify." Mother ***, I'm actually lost. Su Zimo cursed and gulped down another mouthful of strong liquor, before heading towards the east in a wobbly manner. The older cultivator heaved a sigh of relief. "Where did this drunkard come from? He's disgusting," a young man spat out. "Brother Liu, our clan is rather powerful in the vicinity of Blue Feather City. Why should we be afraid of a drunkard?" a young girl asked. The older cultivator shook his head. "When you're out there, you must never underestimate anyone. Don't be fooled by how drunk this person is. Who knows what methods he has and what identity he has? You should know that for so many years, There have always been some big clans in the Sun Moon County who would send their talented clansmen to join the Stellar Gate. This person might be from one of those big clans. Another person asked, Brother Liu, is the rumor about the Stellar Gate true? Is there really a cultivation method that is comparable to a taboo secret manual hidden in the Xian sect? This rumor has been circulating for a long time. I don't know if it's true or not. The older cultivator said. It's said that many years ago, a marquis from another region came to the Divine Firmament continent and started a massacre. Among the immortal kings, no one could defeat him. In the end, the immortal emperor took action and killed him in that mountain range. After that, the terrain of that mountain range changed. 7 mountains rose against the trend and were as tall as the sky. The surrounding mountains stood tall, forming the current Stellar Gate. Since then, there have been all kinds of legends in the Divine Firmament immortal realm. The most popular one is that the marquis from another region died and left his inheritance in that mountain range. Some people also say that it's a technique called something like the Supreme Profound Spirit. I can't remember the name. The people behind him listened attentively. Someone asked, what happened after that? The older cultivator smiled and said, after that, many cultivators came to this mountain range. They wanted to inherit the legacy of this foreign marquis and search for that illusory cultivation method. I heard that at the beginning, not only the Divine Firmament immortal realm, but also the 9 Clouds immortal realm, even the Pure Land of Bliss, and the Demon realm sent cultivators to obtain this opportunity. But in the end, they all returned empty-handed. Some people didn't want to leave and guarded that mountain range all day long. Later, it gradually developed into a sect, which is the current Stellar Gate. When the Stellar Gate was first established, there were true immortals overseeing it. But as time passed, the first generation grew old, and no one obtained any opportunities, so the number of cultivators coming to Astral Sect dwindled. Until now, only some of the big clans in the Sun Moon County would send some of their disciples here. Actually, they don't have much hope. They just go out to gain experience. Everyone sighed when they heard that. The older cultivator shrugged and shook his head with a smile. Actually, it's just a rumor. I also heard that the marquis who died back then didn't come from another region, but from another realm. Another realm? Everyone was stunned. The older cultivator said, he's not from our heaven realm. He's a marquis from another realm. Chapter 2044. Those cultivators thought that Su Zimo was already far away and could not hear what they were saying. In reality, Su Zimo had the rank, Ten Qinglian true body, and his hearing was extremely sharp. He could hear their conversation clearly. There's such a rumor? Su Zimo murmured softly. It seemed like this astral sect was not an ordinary Xian sect. However, those rumors did not affect him much. He was only here to sneak into the astral sect and find a quiet place to cultivate in seclusion. After some time, his cultivation would improve, and the search outside would gradually ease. Then he would leave the astral sect. A few hours later, Su Zimo's gaze froze. Finally, he saw 7 majestic mountains on the horizon that were almost at the same level as the sky. The astral sect was right ahead. Before long, Su Zimo arrived at the entrance of the astral sect. There were already many cultivators gathered in front of the entrance. At a glance, there were tens of thousands of them. There's actually so many people. Su Zimo frowned. However, on second thought, it was good to have more people. He would not attract attention if he blended in with the crowd. Su Zimo sipped on his liquor and looked around drunkenly. He noticed that among the tens of thousands of cultivators, there were different cultivation realms. Some were Xian immortals, and even low-level Xian immortals. Some of them were even Earth immortals. He even saw a few rank 7 Earth immortals in the crowd. Among the group of cultivators, there were some who were gathered together. They had an extraordinary aura, and were dressed similarly. They had the same token on them, and looked like they were from the same faction. According to the older cultivator, those cultivators were most likely from the same clan. Su Zimo looked around, and saw a rank 3 Xian immortal. He went up and grabbed that rank 3 Xian immortal to a corner. Damn it! You're just a rank 3 Xian immortal, and you're here to join the astral sect? Su Zimo cursed as he glared at the man with drunken eyes. This stage 3 mystic immortal was thin and weak, with a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks. His eyes darted around, but under Su Zimo's palm, he could not move at all. Su Zimo's breath, which reeked of alcohol, splashed onto the man's face, and he almost vomited. However, when he felt Su Zimo's powerful aura, which completely suppressed him, he swallowed back the filth in his mouth. The man's face turned purple, and he was so scared that he was about to cry. He said in a trembling voice, "Immortal, I was wrong. I will leave now." When Su Zimo saw this, a trace of guilt rose in his heart. Originally, he didn't want to reveal any flaws, but he didn't expect to scare this person out of his wits. In an instant, he loosened his grip and put the man down. He snorted coldly, "You're not allowed to leave. Come back here." Okay, I won't leave. I'll listen to Exalted Immortal." This person's voice was trembling. He was obviously scared out of his wits. He was completely dumbfounded, and didn't know whether to leave or not. Su Zimo took out a small origin condensing pill from his storage bag, and flicked it to the man. "I'll ask you a few questions. Answer me truthfully. Please ask Exalted Immortal. I'll tell you everything I know." Although this person said that, he did not dare to take the small origin condensing pill. Su Zimo asked, "Why hasn't the disciple recruitment of the astral sect started yet?" The man hurriedly said, "Exalted Immortal, you may not know this, but the astral sect has a fixed time every time they open their doors for disciple recruitment. It will officially start in a few days." Su Zimo grunted and asked again, "What are the rules for the astral sect's disciple recruitment? Why do they have all kinds of cultivation?" "According to my understanding, the astral sect doesn't look at cultivation realm, but talent and opportunities." This person said, "When the mountain gate is opened, the entrance examination will be held at night on that star observation platform." The man pointed in the direction of the astral sect. Su Zimo turned to look. There was a tall stone platform behind the astral sect's mountain gate. The man continued, "It's said that the observatory was refined from a meteorite, and can sense the stars in the sky. We will stand on the observatory, and as long as we can stimulate starlight in our body, we will pass the astral sect's test, and be accepted into the sect." Su Zimo nodded inwardly. The entrance test of the astral sect was rather unique, in that it did not look at cultivation realm. However, Su Zimo was not worried. With his talent, aptitude, bloodline, physique, and primordial spirit, he could definitely pass the test. "Alright, there's nothing else for you to do." Su Zimo waved his hand, and took out a few small origin condensing pills, and threw them to the stage 3 mystic immortal. The man rubbed his palms and wanted to take them, but he was still a little afraid. Although it was just a few small origin condensing pills, it was a rare resource for him. While he was hesitating, Su Zimo had already turned to leave while drinking the strong wine. The man hurriedly picked up the small origin condensing pills with joy. Su Zimo found a random place, and lay down without caring about the dust beneath him. He placed the wine jar on his chest and closed his eyes, waiting patiently. In the next few days, more and more cultivators gathered in the astral sect. By the time the disciple recruitment was officially started, there were already 100,000 cultivators gathered outside the mountain gate. That was not a small scale. To outsiders, Su Zimo was drunk most of the time, and was sleeping soundly at the side. However, he had already learned about the backgrounds of some of the 100,000 cultivators through listening. That night, the mountain gate was wide open as the stars shone brightly. 3 middle-aged men stood above the mountain gate. They wore robes embroidered with stars, and had calm expressions. All 3 of them were heavenly immortals. "I am Lung Guang." The heavenly immortal in the middle looked at the cultivators around him, and nodded slightly. "Welcome to the astral sect for the entrance test. I hereby announce that the entrance test has officially begun." "Hold on." Suddenly, a voice sounded from the distance, interrupting heavenly immortal Lung Guang. Immediately after, 2 figures tore through the air at an extremely fast speed, and arrived before him in the blink of an eye. Both of them wore black gold feathered armor, and had cold expressions. Although they were only earth immortals, Their auras were not inferior to heavenly immortal Leng Guang in the slightest. Executioners! A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. In the eyes of many cultivators, there was deep respect and fear. In the great Jin immortal kingdom, the executioners represented killing and punishment. Although Leng Guang was a heavenly immortal, he did not dare to disobey the orders of the two executioners, or it would be a challenge to the authority of the great Jin immortal kingdom. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. Although he was still drunk on the surface, he was secretly wary. Fellow Taoists, may I ask why you're here? Heavenly immortal Leng Guang did not dare to delay and hurried forward. One of the executioners took out a painting from his storage bag and unfurled it, revealing a portrait. The person in the portrait was dressed in green robes with black hair and delicate features. It was none other than Su Zimo. The great Jin immortal kingdom is hunting down this person with all its might. The executioner looked at the many cultivators beneath his feet and said in a deep voice, "If you see this person, take him down immediately. If anyone has any clues, report it, and you'll be rewarded handsomely." Chapter 2045. Celestial Immortal Leng Guang cupped his hands and said, "Don't worry, fellow Taoists. Our astral sect has already heard of this matter. After today, we will make a few copies of this portrait and send them out. If we find any, the astral sect will do our best to suppress this person." One of the executioner Earth Guards nodded slightly and looked around. His gaze swept across the crowd in front of the mountain gate with a sharp gaze. Su Zimo's current appearance was very different from the portrait. He was covered in mud and his face was flushed red, as if he had fallen asleep. The executioner Earth Guard's gazes swept past him and did not stop at all. "Have any of you seen this person?" The executioner Earth Guard on the left shook the portrait in his hand and asked in a deep voice. "Reporting to the exalted immortals, we have been waiting here for 2 days and have not seen this person." A young man in a white robe stepped forward. His black hair reached his shoulders, and he had sword-like eyebrows. He had a graceful demeanor as he cupped his hands towards the two executioner Earth Guards and spoke with a smile. Su Zimo opened his drunken eyes slightly and glanced at this person. Just now, he heard that this young man was from the Lin clan, one of the 5 great clans of the Sun Moon County. His name was Lin Ming, a rank 7 Earth Immortal. This time, the Lin clan had brought over 100 clansmen with different cultivation realms. There were Xian Immortals and Earth Immortals. However, Lin Ming's cultivation realm was the highest among these clansmen. Looking at the positions of these clansmen, one could tell that Lin Ming had a high status among these Lin clan clansmen. Lin Ming stood out this time to curry favor with the executioner Earth Guards. However, the 2 executioner Earth Guards in the air did not appreciate it. They only glanced at Lin Ming indifferently before retracting their gazes. Although the Lin clan's influence in the Sun Moon County was not small, compared to the executioner Earth Guards, the difference was too great. Behind the executioner Earth Guards were the royal family of the great Jin Celestial Kingdom. On the other side, another young man stood out from the crowd. He held a folding fan in his hand and wore a purple robe. He cupped his hands and said, "Exalted immortals, please rest assured. If we find this person, the Xie clan will be the first to step forward." The Xie clan was one of the 5 great clans of the Sun Moon County. The one who spoke was Xie Tianfeng, a rank 7 Earth Immortal. As this person stood up, he deliberately glanced at Lin Ming, as if he wanted to compete with him. "If there's any news, report it immediately." An expressionless executioner tossed the scroll in his hand to the celestial immortal of cold light. He then turned and left with the other executioner. Su Zimo breathed a sigh of relief. If the 2 executioners were not afraid of trouble, they would inspect the 100,000 cultivators outside the mountain gate. On the other side, not long after the 2 executioners left the astral gate, one of them suddenly asked, "Brother Chen, just now, why aren't you inspecting the 100,000 cultivators outside the astral gate?" "That Su Zimo is definitely not among them," the guard surnamed Chen said. "How so?" The other person was astonished and said, "The commander himself said that Su Zimo knows the art of countless transformations. He can change his appearance and become another person." The executioner surnamed Chen asked. Then let me ask you, how long can a rank 9 heavenly immortal maintain myriad transformations? That depends on the strength of the Yuan spirit. Even if it's condensed, it won't last long. Myriad transformations is, after all, a peerless ability. Maintaining it is too taxing on the Yuan spirit. The other person said. The executioner surnamed Chen said. Then that's it. That Su Zimo is only a rank 1 earth immortal. Even if he knows myriad transformations, how long can he last? There are 100,000 cultivators outside the astral gate. If he can't hold on, he'll be exposed long ago. The other person came to a realization and praised. Brother Chen is wise. The executioner surnamed Chen said. This is all experience. You've just joined the executioner, so take your time to learn. If you encounter anyone, you have to carefully inspect them from head to toe. Won't we tire ourselves to death? The astral gate. After the two executioners left, the celestial immortal of cold light ordered the astral gate disciples to send the scroll down and have someone copy it as soon as possible. On the other side, his abbot's entrance trial had already begun. Just as the rank 3 mystic immortal had said, the astral gate's entrance trial was rather simple. There were no requirements for the cultivator's cultivation. Everyone stood on the observatory, and as long as starlight appeared on their bodies within 10 breaths, they would pass the trial, although there were 100,000 cultivators outside the mountain gate. However, the observatory was made of meteorite and was spacious enough to hold more than 100 people, at the same time with more than enough space to spare. According to the normal speed, more than 30,000 people could be tested in an hour. Before daybreak, these 100,000 people would finish the trial at the same time. Su Zimo was in no hurry to go up. Instead, he stood among the crowd and paid attention to the observatory's movements. With 100 people on the observatory at the same time, there weren't many who could actually trigger starlight. Sometimes only 1 or 2 people could. Sometimes, there wasn't even a single starlight among the 100. Not long after, a group of cultivators dressed similarly headed for the observatory. The word Wang was written on the medallion at their waists. It was the Wang clan, one of the 5 great clans. The leader of the Wang clansmen was Wang Yu. Although his looks were ordinary, he had a calm expression. He had short hair without a beard, and his eyes were like torches. He looked very capable, and was a rank 6 earthly immortal. Behind him were the Wang clansmen, with mystic immortals making up the majority. More than 100 Wang clansmen stood on the observatory and looked up at the sky. In just a breath, faint starlight appeared on Wang Yu's body. As time passed, the starlight on Wang Yu's body grew brighter and brighter. It even condensed into a thick beam of light that slowly extended from his head to the sky. Celestial immortal cold light nodded slightly. The starlight is 10 feet away from the body. That's already not bad. In the third breath, the starlight beam above Wang Yu's head rose again, reaching a height of 20 feet. This scene caused a series of exclamations. I heard that the brighter the starlight, the better the talent. For someone to be able to condense a beam of light like this, he's definitely someone with extraordinary talent. What does it have to do with wanting to trigger starlight? A cultivator who had failed asked in frustration. I heard that it might have something to do with bloodline. No matter what, when you're on the observatory, you just have to activate your primordial spirit and bloodline without holding back. While everyone was discussing, 10 breaths had passed. The starlight above Wang Yu's head had reached a height of 40 feet. Among the 50,000 people who had passed the trial, Wang Yu was the first to condense a beam of light that reached 40 feet. Not bad. 40 feet is already a rare genius. Beside celestial immortal cold light, a yellow-robed Taoist nodded slightly with a smile. On the other side, an old man lamented. I heard that when the astral sect was first established, all the geniuses of the celestial realm gathered here. There were even people who could condense starlight beams of 80 or 90 feet. It's a pity that all of this has become a legend. Chapter 2046. After 10 breaths of time, more than half of the Wang clan cultivators had activated starlight from their bodies and stayed in the astral sect. Xie Tianfeng couldn't hold himself back and shouted, I'll do it. With that, Xie Tianfeng led the Xie clan members up to the star observation platform. Looking at the posture of the 5 great clans, they probably had a lot of open and secret struggles. Meeting in the astral sect this time, it was inevitable that they would compete. Sure enough, starlight emerged from Xie Tianfeng's body first. In the 4th breath, the starlight left his body and gradually condensed into a beam of light around him, slowly rising towards the sky. Looking at this posture, Xie Tianfeng's starlight beam seems to be one size smaller than Wang Yu's. I wonder how high it will reach in the end. I heard that the Wang clan's ancestor once obtained a divine body tempering technique. In terms of physique and bloodline, this Xie Tianfeng is probably slightly inferior. Su Zimmel listened for so long and had more or less understood. If one's bloodline was strong, the starlight that was activated would not only be shockingly high, but the range would also be extremely wide, and the light would be dazzling. For example, the starlight that Wang Yu condensed just now had a range of 1.5 people, and this Xie Tianfeng's starlight beam only wrapped around him. In the blink of an eye, 10 breaths passed. Xie Tianfeng's starlight beam only reached 3 feet, clearly a head lower than Wang Yu's. Ah! Lin Ming smiled and said, Brother Xie's light beam doesn't seem to be as high as Brother Wang Yu's. Xie Tianfeng's face was a bit ugly. He snorted and looked at Lin Ming, Wang Yu, and the rest not far away. Today is just the entrance trial. It's nothing. After we enter the sect, just wait and see. With that, Xie Tianfeng led the Xie clan members down the star observation platform. More than half of the Xie clan cultivators activated starlight and entered the astral sect. Not long after, Lin Ming led the cultivators onto the astral observatory. Unsurprisingly, Lin Ming also activated starlight beams. Although his starlight beam had exceeded 3 zhang, it was still unable to reach a height of 4 zhang. So far, Wang Yu is still the highest. Junior sister Shangguan, senior brother Zhua, it's your turn? Lin Ming cupped his hands towards the other 2 forces. His gaze landed on junior sister Shangguan. His gaze became somewhat heated, but he quickly restrained himself. The Zhua clan and the Shangguan clan were the other 2 of the 5 great clans in the Sun Moon County. The person in the lead of the Zhua clan wore a plain-colored long robe. His figure was tall and straight, and he possessed a handsome appearance. His facial features were distinct, and his eyes were deep. In terms of bearing, he obviously surpassed Lin Ming, Xie Tianfeng, and Wang Yu. Zhuo Zhuxian, a level 8 Earth Immortal. On the other side, the leader of the Shangguan clan was a young lady, Shangguan Qian. She was also a level 8 Earth Immortal. The 2 of them stood side by side. Looking from afar, they looked like a perfect match made in heaven. Lin Ming and Xie Tianfeng's faces revealed their displeasure. Junior sister Shangguan, you go first? Zhuo Zhuxian smiled and looked at Shangguan Qian. His eyes were gentle as he asked. After you senior brother Zhua. Shangguan Qian looked indifferent and declined. All right. Zhuo Zhuxian smiled faintly and said, I won't decline. After saying that, Zhuo Zhuxian tidied his clothes and led the people behind him to the stargazing platform. The moment Zhuo Zhuxian stepped onto the stargazing platform, spots of starlight appeared in his body. It looked even brighter than Wang Yu's. Whoosh! Starlight appeared in Zhuo Zhuxian's body and soon condensed into a starlight beam that could accommodate 2 people. The starlight beam shot into the sky. 10 feet. 20 feet. When it reached 40 feet, the speed of the starlight beam's ascent gradually slowed down. Everyone stared at the scene unblinkingly and held their breaths. The eyes of Heaven Immortal Leng Guang and the other 2 from the astral sect shone brightly. Could it be that this kid is going to break through 50 feet? It's very difficult. How many years has it been since we last saw a 50 feet starlight beam? 10 breaths of time passed in the blink of an eye. Just when everyone thought that Zhuo Zhuxian's starlight beam had reached its limit, Zhuo Zhuxian howled. Zhuo Zhuxian looked up to the sky and let out a long howl. The blood in his body burst out, and the sound of waves could be heard. Then, the starlight beam around him also increased by an inch and broke through to 50 feet. Exclamations came from the crowd. Nice! Cold Light Celestial Immortal, and the other 2 could not help but applaud and laugh. Humph! Xie Tianfeng sneered and said, He really knows how to show off. Lin Ming's face was also a little gloomy. He glanced at Shang Guanqian, who was not far away. Shang Guanqian looked at the 50 feet starlight beam above Zhuo Zhuxuan's head. Her eyes lit up and she nodded with a smile. Haha. Zhuo Zhuxian led the people down from the stargazing platform and returned to Shang Guanqian's side. He smiled and said, Junior sister Shangguan, it's your turn. Don't feel pressured. Shang Guanqian nodded and led the people behind her to the stargazing platform. On the other side, Su Zimo saw that the number of people who passed the trial was almost there. He did not wait any longer and walked toward the stargazing platform. He wanted to hide in the Stellaris sect and cultivate in seclusion quietly. He could not be too high profile. If he attracted the attention of others, he would definitely not have peace. While thinking, he had already arrived at the stargazing platform and jumped up. Where did this drunkard come from? Get down! Before Su Zimo's figure landed, a figure rushed over from the side and kicked at Su Zimo without mercy. Su Zimo sneered in his heart. The person who attacked was only a stage 9 mystic immortal. However, he was fearless because he was from the Shangguan clan. Such a kick was full of flaws. Su Zimo had countless methods to cripple this person on the spot. However, he did not want to attract attention. He staggered and swayed a few times. It seemed like a coincidence, but he mysteriously avoided the kick of the Shangguan clan member. Su Zimo was drunk and did not realize it. He continued to walk toward the stargazing platform. The Shangguan clansman's foot missed, and he almost couldn't stop himself from falling off the stargazing platform. By the time he reacted, Su Zimo had already arrived at the center of the stargazing platform. Su Zimo's plan was clear. These were all members of the Shangguan clan, and many of them could activate starlight. If he mixed in with them, even if starlight appeared, he would not attract attention. Furthermore, everyone's attention would definitely be on Shang Guanqian. No one would pay attention to a drunkard like him. Su Zimo reeked of alcohol. When he arrived in the crowd, the members of the Shangguan clan revealed looks of disgust and avoided him. Some of the members of the Shangguan clan could not hold it in and walked toward Su Zimo with unfriendly expressions. They even wanted to throw Su Zimo off the stargazing platform. Chapter 2047. Motherf *Ker. Su Zimo glared at the Shangguan clansmen that were charging over with his drunken eyes and shouted intentionally. Why? Is the Shangguan clan that domineering? Does the observatory belong to the Shangguan clan now? Everyone else was naturally just watching the show. However, Heaven Immortal Cold Light and the other two from Stellar Sect frowned slightly. Heaven Immortal Cold Light coughed gently. Even though the Shangguan clan was one of the major clans of Sun Moon County, they could not chase people away from the observatory casually under his watch. The Shangguan clansmen had terrible expressions and were stuck in a dilemma. That's enough. Right then a cold voice sounded. Shang Guanqian was walking over and waved her hand casually. You guys can disperse and prepare for the trial. When the Shangguan clansmen heard that, they glared at Su Zimo before dispersing. Shang Guanqian looked at Su Zimo indifferently and stood not far away from him. There were already more than 100 people on the observatory. Heaven Immortal Cold Light channeled his spirit consciousness and conjured a hand seal, causing a spirit light to shoot out from his fingertip that entered the observatory. The trial had begun. The many cultivators on the observatory hurriedly channeled their blood chi and released their spirit consciousnesses, looking up into the starry skies in an attempt to establish a connection with the stars and activate their starlight. Su Zimo was the only one who was trying his best to calm his blood chi and compose himself like an old monk in a meditative state, afraid that he would cause too much of a commotion. Since he wanted to enter Stellar Sect and lay low, he could not be too high profile. If the observatory was truly related to bloodlines, he would definitely trigger an intense reaction from the observatory the moment he activated Qinglian's bloodline. At that time, if he could truly condense a starlight beam that was 20 feet or 80 feet tall, he would become the center of attention. Therefore, while the Shangguan clansmen were channeling their blood chi with all their might, Su Zimo was still nonchalant and intoxicated, as though he could fall asleep at any moment. On the other side, Shangguanqian did not disappoint either. The starlight beam she condensed was even larger than Zhuoxuan's, and in the fifth breath, it had already exceeded 40 feet tall. If nothing went wrong, she could reach 50 feet or even higher. Not bad, not bad. Heaven Immortal Cold Light smiled and nodded slightly. There are 2 starlight beams that reached 50 feet this time. They are considered rare geniuses. It's a pity that they don't belong to our stellar sect. The old man beside him sighed softly. The 3 of them knew that those geniuses from the 5 clans of Sun Moon County had joined stellar sect for the sake of that illusory legend back then. One day, those geniuses would have to leave. After all, the astral sect was only a black sect. If these geniuses wanted to achieve greater things, they would definitely try to enter an earth sect. In the blink of an eye, 8 breaths. The starlight around Shangguanqian's body had also reached a height of 5 feet. There were still 2 breaths left. Although Shangguanqian couldn't break through to 6 feet, she could still climb up a little. Almost everyone eyes. Calm. No one noticed that Su Zimo, who was not far away from her, was frowning in deep thought. Su Zimo controlled himself well, and did not release any starlight from his body. But seeing that there were only 2 breaths left, and the trial was about to end, he cautiously tried to circulate a bit of his bloodline. At that moment, Su Zimo felt a sense of danger. He saw a huge light beam coming at him from the corner of his eye. Shangguanqian. Just now, although she did not say anything, she was disgusted to see an ugly man who reeked of alcohol among the Shangguan clansmen. Seeing that the trial was about to end, Shangguanqian was ready to teach that drunkard a lesson. Her method was simple, and she did not even have to do it herself. In Shangguanqian's eyes, the drunkard was covered in dust and reeked of alcohol. She was afraid that she would dirty herself if she did it. The starlight beam around Shangguanqian could fuse with more than 2 people, and had a large range. As long as she came to the drunkard's side, she could easily send him flying with the starlight beam. She condensed through the stargazing platform. Letting the drunkard fall from the stargazing platform could be considered a lesson for him. Su Zimo naturally did not know what Shangguanqian was thinking, but he did not want to be sent flying when he saw someone rushing over. After all, he had not passed the trial. Su Zimo subconsciously stabilized his body. His feet seemed to have grown roots, and were firmly fixed on the stargazing platform. Shangguanqian's starlight beam collided with Su Zimo's Qinglian real body. Su Zimo did not move. Su Zimo's body gradually merged into the starlight beam. Originally, Su Zimo tried his best to control Qinglian's bloodline and not let it leak. But now, the starlight beam enveloped Qinglian's real body and starlight filled her body. The starlight could not help but come into contact with Qinglian's bloodline. Although the starlight beam was condensed by Shangguanqian, it was also formed by the connection between the stargazing platform and the firmament. Now that the starlight sensed Qinglian's bloodline, it was equivalent to the stargazing platform sensing it as well. Instantly, the world shook and the weather changed. Immediately after, a bedazzling starlight beam burst forth from Su Zimo's body. The range of the starlight beam was so large that it covered the entire stargazing platform. Initially, more than 100 Shangguan clansmen stood on the stargazing platform. At that moment, all of them were swept down from the stargazing platform by the starlight beam that burst forth from Su Zimo's body. Even Shangguanqian did not avoid it. She did not know what happened at all. She only felt that she had collided with the drunkard. Thereafter, an incomparably terrifying power seemed to have burst forth from the drunkard's body and sent her flying. She wanted to open her eyes to take a look. However, her vision was shrouded by a bedazzling brilliance. It was white, and she could not see anything. The starlight was way too strong. She was not the only one. Many cultivators who were watching in front of the door were blinded as well. Everyone either closed their eyes or lowered their heads to avoid it. Exclamations could be heard from the crowd. Some of the cultivators who were slower in dodging were blinded by the powerful starlight that burst forth from the stargazing platform, causing tears to flow down their faces. Not to mention the mystic immortals and earth immortals present. Even the 3 sky immortals of the Stellaris sect, who were hosting the entrance trial, were shaken to the core. They glanced sideways and narrowed their eyes instinctively. This terrifyingly strong light even caused them to be temporarily blinded. The three sky immortals hurriedly channeled their spirit consciousness and essence chi to protect their eyes. Without hesitation, Sky Immortal Lung Guang conjured a secret eye technique and tried his best to open his eyes to look at the stargazing platform. Pust! That glance caused his expression to change drastically, and he nearly fell from midair. Chapter 2048. Celestial Immortal Lung Guang could see a huge beam of starlight shooting into the sky from the observatory. Above the firmament, millions of stars twinkled, sprinkling down endless starlight that connected with the beam of starlight. A height of a few dozen feet was no longer enough to measure the beam of starlight. The beam of light seemed to have connected with heaven and earth, establishing a connection with the stars. How is this possible? What's going on? Celestial Immortal Lung Guang shook his head and blinked hard. For a moment, he even thought that the scene in front of him was just his imagination. On the observatory, even Su Zimo, who was the instigator of such a violent reaction, was shocked. He tried his best to restrain himself and be careful, hoping to keep a low profile and not attract the attention of others. But he did not expect that Qinglian's bloodline would trigger such a violent reaction from the observatory. In fact, the reason for such a strong reaction was not only because of Qinglian's bloodline, but more importantly, because of the two divine stones in Su Zimo's eyes, candlelight and nether glow. After the beam of starlight shot out, Su Zimo knew that the commotion this time was too big. He was also burning with anxiety. If the beam of starlight did not disappear, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. He would definitely not be able to stay in the astral sect any longer. At that moment, there was a slight change in Su Zimo's sea of consciousness. Qinglian's primordial spirit held the trigem Jade Rui as she sat on the lotus throne of creation. At that moment, the 300 Jade Rui in Qinglian's primordial spirit's hand seemed to have sensed something and suddenly trembled. Then, the endless starlight that surrounded him seemed to have found a place to go, and all of them poured into his sea of consciousness through the top of his head. The 300 Jade Rui left the palm of Qinglian's primordial spirit and came to the air above his sea of consciousness, trembling slightly. On the auspicious cloud at the head of the trigem Jade Rui, there was a dim pearl embedded. Under the gaze of Qinglian's primordial spirit, the endless starlight all poured into one of the three pearls. The pearl began to emit a faint light. If one looked at it carefully, they could vaguely see that there seemed to be some starlight floating in the bead, like tiny stars. Su Zimo was dumbfounded. According to Qinglian's inherited memories, the three pearls on the head of the tri-precious jade scepter did indeed have a great origin. They were called the limitless pearls. The three precious pearls were condensed from the essence of the sun, moon, and star within the chaos, and they corresponded to the heavens, the earth and the man. They were born from the will of the heavens, and were born together with the Tao. The so-called three treasures of the three precious Jade Rui actually referred to these three limitless treasure beads. Although Su Zimo knew the origin of these three everlasting jewels, he had yet to find out how to activate them, much less how to use them. This sudden turn of events gave Su Zimo a flash of inspiration. If the three limitless treasured beads were condensed from the essence of the sun, moon and star, then the pearl just now that was absorbing the starlight was most likely a star pearl. Su Zimo had a hunch that he might have inadvertently discovered another mystery of the tri-precious jade scepter. However, now was not the time to study this treasure. He was now on the star observation platform. After causing such a huge commotion, the most important thing was to escape unscathed without attracting too much attention. Originally, Su Zimo planned to take advantage of the chaos to leave. However, now that the starlight around him had been absorbed by the limitless treasured bead on the tri-precious jade scepter, there were no more anomalies. He could try to bluff his way through. On the other side, the cold light heaven immortal shook his head and tried his best to stay awake. When he opened his eyes again, he was stunned on the spot with his mouth wide open, somewhat dumbfounded. The dazzling and blazing starlight beam from just now had actually disappeared. It was as if what he saw just now was just an illusion. The cold light heaven immortal frowned. There was only a drunkard left on the star observation platform, sitting on the spot. The wine jar had been shattered, and the wine spilled all over his body. His expression was blank, as if he was also frightened. The other two heaven immortals also came to their senses and subconsciously asked, "What's going on? What happened just now?" "I don't know." The cold light heaven immortal shook his head. He did not know how to explain or describe it. Could it have something to do with this person? The cold light heaven immortal stared at the drunkard on the star observation platform for a long time. His divine consciousness scanned the drunkard several times, but did not find anything unusual. This drunkard was just an ordinary first-stage Earth immortal. After a while, the other cultivators gradually recovered. The Shangguan clansmen, who had fallen around the star observation platform, were dizzy from the fall. By the time they recovered, the phenomenon from before had already disappeared. They did not know what happened at all. They only saw a burst of light beside them, and they were sent flying. What happened? I don't know. Just now, something seemed to have exploded on the star observation platform, and there was a huge burst of light. It was so bright that my eyes hurt, and I couldn't see anything clearly. There was a wave of discussion in the crowd. Shangguan Qian frowned and stared at the drunkard on the star observation platform thoughtfully. Others did not know what happened at that moment. However, she could clearly feel that the terrifying power and the dazzling starlight should have burst out from the drunkard's body. However, this drunkard looked so ordinary. How could he cause such a huge reaction from the star observation platform? "Junior sister Shangguan, how are you?" At this moment, a gentle voice sounded. Zhuo Xian came to her side and reached out his hand to help her up gently. "I'm fine." Shangguan Qian shook her head and replied absent-mindedly. Her thoughts were still on the drunkard on the star observation platform. On the other side, Xie Tianfeng and Lin Ming were further away. They had just rushed over and wanted to curry favor with Shangguan Qian, but Zhuo Xian beat them to it. Lin Ming said in a deep voice, "Junior sister Shangguan, was it that drunkard who caused the commotion and injured you? I'll help you teach him a lesson." "I'll go too," Xie Tianfeng also said. "I've long disliked that drunkard." In fact, the two of them only wanted to show off in front of Shangguan Qian and find someone to vent her anger on for her. However, even they themselves didn't know that they had guessed correctly. At this moment, figures rose from the star cluster sect. In a short while, dozens of figures rushed over at lightning speed. Most of them were old. In the blink of an eye, they arrived above the mountain gate. The person in the lead had a dignified bearing. His hair was gray, and he held a horsetail whisk in his hand. His eyes were bright and sharp, and his aura was powerful. The person who came was the patriarch of the star cluster sect, level 9 celestial immortal Xingyu. The commotion on the star observation platform caused the star cluster sect to shake. Countless elders and grand elders who were in seclusion came out. Chapter 2049. What's going on? Xingyu, patriarch of the astral sect, looked at celestial immortal Coldlight and the other two, and asked in a deep voice. Celestial immortal Coldlight hesitated and said, "I don't know why, but a huge beam of starlight suddenly erupted from the observatory and swept all the cultivators off the platform." As he spoke, celestial immortal Coldlight looked at the drunkard on the observatory. Now the drunkard was the only one left on the observatory. Damn it! The drunkard seemed to have just come to his senses. His eyes were wide open as he kept stomping on the observatory while cursing. What the hell is this thing? There must be something wrong with the observatory. It gave me a fright. Xingyu patriarch and the elders behind him also glanced at Su Zimo, but found nothing unusual. Moreover, none of them believed that such a huge commotion just now was caused by a first-tier Earth immortal. Celestial immortal Coldlight continued. There was a strange phenomenon just now. The stars in the sky descended, and billions of starlight gathered together and connected with that beam of starlight. But, after a short pause, celestial immortal Coldlight continued. But not long after, maybe just 1 or 2 breaths, that beam of starlight suddenly disappeared. Disappeared? Xingyu patriarch frowned slightly. In fact, they didn't see what happened at the gate. They only came out of seclusion after sensing a huge energy fluctuation and a flash of bright light. As for the cultivators around the gate, they were all blinded by the dazzling starlight and couldn't see what happened. Celestial Immortal Coldlight was the only one who saw it clearly, but the whole process was too short. Even if he saw it clearly, he was still confused and in disbelief. Could there really be a problem with the observatory? It seemed that such a phenomenon had never appeared in the records of the astral sect. Celestial Immortal Coldlight also didn't believe that someone's bloodline could cause such a phenomenon. When the astral sect was first established, the geniuses from all over the celestial realm were at most 80 or 90 feet starlight. That beam of starlight just now directly connected with heaven and earth. How could such a phenomenon be caused by human strength? Xingyu Patriarch pondered for a while and said, "Cold Light, continue to preside over the trial. I'll stay here and watch." "All right." Cold Light Celestial Immortal nodded and raised his voice. Just now, cultivators with starlight emerging from their bodies on the star observation platform, come to me and receive your sect token. Lin Ming and Xie Tianfeng originally wanted to find trouble with Su Zimo, but seeing that the patriarch of the astral sect was here, they could only give up for the time being. Shangguan Qian and dozens of Shangguan clansmen headed towards Cold Light Celestial Immortal. Su Zimo leaped off the stargazing platform and walked unsteadily towards Heaven Immortal Cold Ray. The dozens of clansmen of the Shangguan clan received their respective sect tokens. In the astral sect, profound immortals could only be regarded as outer disciples. They did not have their own abode to cultivate in, and could only find their own residence in the mountains of the astral sect. If one reached the earthly immortal realm, they could open up their own cave abode on the 7 main peaks of the astral sect, or choose an empty cave abode of a predecessor as their own. Su Zimo came before Cold Light Celestial Immortal without the slightest fear. He casually cupped his hands and casually extended his palm, asking for his sect token. His every move had to be consistent with his identity as a drunkard. There could not be too big of a difference. "You?" Cold Light Celestial Immortal frowned and glanced at Su Zimo, saying faintly, "According to my observation, just now, there doesn't seem to be any starlight emerging from your body." "Why not?" Su Zimo glared at him drunkenly and argued. "My starlight appeared later. In fact, no starlight had appeared at the 8th breath because he had suppressed his bloodline. But in the last 2 breaths, a sudden change occurred on the star observation platform, and no one could be sure whether or not starlight had emerged from Su Zimo's body." Just as Cold Light Celestial Immortal was hesitating, Shangguan Qian suddenly spoke up from the side. "Senior, there is indeed starlight emerging from this person's body. I was the closest to him, so I could sense it." Cold Light Celestial Immortal's expression relaxed slightly. Shangguan Qian did not know this drunkard, and given her status and cultivation, she would not lie about this matter. Furthermore, it did not make much of a difference whether there was one more person or one less for the entrance trial of Star Cluster Sect. Without hesitation, Cold Light Celestial Immortal took out a sect token and asked, "Name?" "Emoling." Naturally, Su Zimo would not reveal his real name, and instead used the name he used when he was dormant in the capital of Great Zhou of Tianhuang mainland. Cold Light Celestial Immortal's spirit consciousness moved. The words Emoling were already carved on the token in his hand. On the other side of the token, the words Inner Sect were carved, signifying that he was an Inner Sect disciple. Su Zimo received the sect token and grinned. Being able to join Star Cluster Sect is truly a blessing in life. I should drink to my heart's content. As he said that, he took out a wine jar from his storage bag and drank heartily, ignoring the gazes of others. "Emo Ling." Right then, Shangguan Qian's voice suddenly sounded in Su Zimo's mind. "I know. You were the one who caused the commotion on the observatory platform." After saying that, Shangguan Qian stared fixedly at Su Zimo, trying to find any flaws in him. However, Su Zimo did not pause in his actions at all, as though he did not hear anything. He only tossed the wine jar away after he finished drinking all the wine in it. His face was flushed and his eyes were blurry as he leaned towards Shangguan Qian. "Hee." Su Zimo chuckled and said mysteriously, "You guessed right. I was the one who did it. Impressive, right?" Shang Guanqian could not help but reveal a look of disgust when she saw the drunk Su Zimo leaning over, and took a few steps back. She looked at Su Zimo, who seemed to be delirious, and her speculation was shaken. She had helped Su Zimo to speak up for Su Zimo, so that he could enter the Stellaris sect smoothly. In fact, she was suspicious of Su Zimo. Just now, Shang Guanqian's words were just to test him. If Su Zimo pretended not to hear or showed any abnormality, it would prove that her speculation was correct. However, this person did not hide it, and directly admitted it, which made Shang Guanqian mutter in her heart. This person is delirious and crazy. He's probably talking nonsense after he's drunk and bragging about himself. Thinking of this, Shang Guanqian no longer paid attention to Su Zimo, and retreated with the Shangguan clansmen behind her. Seeing this, Lin Ming and Xie Tianfeng both sneered and looked unfriendly. No one knew what they were thinking. What's wrong with this person? Zhou Zhuxian noticed Shang Guanqian's strange behavior and asked in a low voice. Nothing. Shang Guanqian shook her head slightly and said, I think I'm overthinking. Chapter 2050. Before dawn, the astral sect's entrance trial had already ended. Although there were 100,000 cultivators, less than 10,000 of them were able to enter the astral sect. Even so, it was still a huge number. When the Stellar Rain sect's sect master and the numerous elders saw that the entrance trial had gone extremely smoothly, and that there were no more strange occurrences, they left first. All of you follow me. Celestial Immortal Lung Guang summoned a huge immortal boat and carried the thousands of cultivators behind him into the sect. There are many formations and restrictions within the astral sect. You must always carry your sect tokens with you at all times. Otherwise, you might fall into the formation and be attacked by the restrictions. Celestial Immortal Lung Guang stood on the deck of the immortal boat and walked through the astral sect, pointing out the various landforms and ancient buildings as he introduced them. The astral sect was too big. Even the lowest mystic sect in the upper realm was more than 10 times larger than any sect in the lower realm. Just the 7 main peaks of the astral sect alone gave birth to a feeling of inferiority and insignificance. When they got closer, they saw that each main peak was majestic and towering into the clouds, standing between the mountain ranges below them. Compared to the main peaks before them, they were as small as ants. Each main peak was surrounded by mountains that stretched for hundreds of miles, almost forming a mountain range. Just the area formed by these 7 main peaks was unimaginably vast. These 7 peaks are Dubhi Merak, Fekta, Migrez Alioth Mizar and Alcade. The Earth Immortals among you can choose one of the 7 main peaks and establish a cave abode there. Celestial Immortal Lung Guang said. Su Zimo spread out his divine sense and felt around. The heaven and earth essence energy surrounding these 7 main peaks was clearly much richer than in other areas. It would definitely be better to cultivate on these main peaks. As for which main peak to cultivate on, it didn't matter. Su Zimo thought for a moment, then randomly chose a main peak and flew over on his flying sword. He would have a lot of time to learn about the rules of the sect in the future. Right now, the most important thing for him was to find a cave abode and cultivate in seclusion. Junior sister Shangguan, which main peak do you choose? Lin Ming smiled as he asked. What he meant was that he wanted to choose the same main peak as Shang Guanqian, so that it would be more convenient for them to communicate with each other. Shang Guanqian glanced at Su Zimo, who was leaving. She pondered for a while and said, I haven't decided yet. Let's look around first. With that, she also left Cold Light Celestial Immortal's immortal boat and headed towards the 7 main peaks, keeping a certain distance from Su Zimo. Junior sister Shangguan, wait for me, Xie Tianfeng shouted, and hurriedly chased after him. Lin Ming followed closely behind. Brother Wang, aren't you going to chase after them? Zhou Zhuxian looked at the unmoving Wang Yu and asked with a smile. No thank you, senior brother Zhua. Wang Yu lightly shook his head as he gazed at the leftmost main peak amongst the 7 main peaks called Dubhi, and then he leaped up and dashed towards it. Zhou Zhuxian pondered for a while and chased after Shang Guanqian. Su Zimo could naturally feel the actions of Shang Guanqian and the others behind him, but he did not care. He came to the end of the 7 main peaks. Alcate Peak. This is it. Su Zimo came to the top of Alcate Peak and climbed all the way up. Higher up on the main peak were the abodes of the heavenly immortal experts of the sect, or the various grand elders. Su Zimo circled around halfway up the mountain and saw an empty abode. The words Wanli were written on the top of the abode. It must be the name of the abode's previous owner. Su Zimo was too lazy to change it. He directly entered the abode and casually performed a few minor immortal techniques to do a simple cleaning. In fact, this kind of thing should be done by some servants. Although Su Zimo was only a level 1 Earth Immortal, he was already qualified to recruit some servants in the upper realm. However, he had too many secrets, so he did not do anything unnecessary. After a simple cleaning, Su Zimo began to inscribe runes at the entrance of the abode to set up a formation. This seclusion might take a long time. During this time, he would not allow anyone to disturb him. On the other side, Shangguan Qian had already noticed that Su Zimo had entered Alcate Peak. She wandered between the 7 main peaks for a while, and also came to Alcate Peak to find a abode to stay in. Her suspicion of Su Zimo had not been completely dispelled. After all, previously on the star observation platform, she clearly felt a terrifying power burst out from Su Zimo's body, and then the starlight exploded. Lin Ming and Xie Tianfeng naturally also came to Alcate Peak and found a abode to stay in next to Shangguan Qian's abode. Zhuo Zhuxian saw this scene and smiled slightly. He entered Mizar Peak, which was next to Alcate Peak, and stayed there. After moving into the abode, they naturally had to tidy it up. The Shangguan clan, Lin clan, and Xie clan were also Xian immortals who had joined the astral sect. Under the command of Shangguan Qian and the other two, they began to decorate their abodes. Alchemy room, cultivation room, weapon refining room, spirit beast room, immortal herb garden. Everything was more or less set up, and 3 days had passed. Xie Tianfeng looked at his abode and was very satisfied. Just as he was free, he thought of Shangguan Qian. When he thought of Shangguan Qian, he could not help but think of that drunkard. Xie Tianfeng snorted and said, "You have repeatedly offended junior sister Shangguan. I will teach you a lesson now." Xie Tianfeng had a good plan. He was prepared to teach Su Zimo a lesson and bring him to Shangguan Qian. Then he could naturally see Shangguan Qian and even take a look at her abode. If I can enter junior sister Shangguan's abode. The corners of Xie Tianfeng's mouth rose, and he smiled evilly, letting his imagination run wild. After a while he could no longer hold back. His heart was burning with passion. He rushed out of the abode and rushed toward Su Zimo's abode. Not long after, he arrived in front of Su Zimo's abode. There was already a person standing there, Lin Ming. Xie Tianfeng was not the only one with the same idea. "Why are you standing here?" Xie Tianfeng frowned slightly. He and Lin Ming represented their respective clans, and both wanted to become Dao companions with the most outstanding woman in this generation of the Shangguan clan. This was also equivalent to the combination of 2 great clans and 2 great forces. Therefore, the two of them always disliked each other. Lin Ming pointed to the abode in front of him and said with a faint smile, "That drunkard is inside. Brother Xie, please." Xie Tianfeng was not a fool, and immediately sensed that there was something fishy. He narrowed his eyes slightly and spread out his divine sense to explore the surroundings of the abode. He could not help but frown and murmur, "Array formation?" Lin Ming also snorted coldly and said, "This drunkard is not simple. He set up such an array formation in 3 days. Chapter 2051. What should we do? Xie Tianfeng frowned and asked, "Can you break this formation?" "I don't know anything about formations." Lin Ming shook his head. Then he smiled and said, "How about Brother Xie directly release some supernatural powers and secret skills to break apart this array formation?" Both of them were level 7 Earth Immortals, far stronger than Su Zimo. Although they didn't know anything about formations, they still had a good chance of breaking it with brute force. Xie Tianfeng thought about it and didn't make a move. After all, they were halfway up the main peak of Alcate Mountain. If they broke the formation by force, it would cause a big commotion. Attacking the cave abode of a cultivator from the same sect was a big deal. If the sect elders punished them, it wouldn't be worth it. Xie Tianfeng sneered and said, "Who do you think I am? Do I need to teach a drunkard a lesson? I don't believe he can hide in his cave abode forever." "That's right. Just send someone to keep an eye on him." Lin Ming also nodded. The two of them reached an agreement and went their separate ways. In the cave abode, Su Zimo didn't care about the two outside and had already started cultivating in seclusion. There were too many things he needed to cultivate in this seclusion. In addition to improving his cultivation, there was the Void Thunder Manual, Prajna Nirvana Sutra, Black Tortoise Secret Technique, and the mystery of the Trijade Rui. Su Zimo thought for a while and decided to cultivate the scripture on the third wall of the prison suppressing cauldron to perfect the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. The Prajna Nirvana Sutra was a forbidden scripture. When Su Zimo was in the arcane Aeon realm, he could use elemental spirit stones to cultivate it. If he perfected it, his cultivation speed would definitely increase. Moreover, this forbidden scripture was his foundation after ascending to the upper realm. It was also his main cultivation method. Su Zimo took out the prison-suppressing cauldron and injected his divine sense into the third wall. The Sanskrit characters on it gradually lit up. These Sanskrit characters were extremely complicated. It was very taxing to cultivate. Fortunately, Su Zimo had the foundation of the first two chapters, so it was much easier for him to cultivate. Time flew. Outside the Immortals' cave, cultivators came and went, and all sorts of things happened in the sect, but Su Zimo remained unmoved. He remained in secluded meditation. Generally speaking, if a cultivator wanted to obtain elemental spirit stones from the sect, they could only complete some tasks assigned by the sect and accumulate contribution points in exchange for some cultivation resources. However, Su Zimo did not need it at all. In the previous spirit mines, Absolute Thunder City, and the Emperor Tomb, he had experienced several battles. Just by picking up the storage bags of others, he had accumulated a lot of elemental spirit stones, soul condensing pills, and many other resources. In the blink of an eye, 329 years had passed since Su Zimo went into seclusion. Inside the cave, there were about 10 elemental spirit stones placed beside Su Zimo. His body emitted 10 thin strands of golden thread that sank into the 10 elemental spirit stones, simultaneously absorbing the heaven and earth origin energy within. The yuan qi of heaven and earth on his body became denser and denser. The entire cave dwelling became enshrouded in mist, as if it was a fairyland. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's body shuddered as his aura skyrocketed. He opened his eyes and took a deep breath, swallowing the surrounding mist into his abdomen. The entire cave dwelling regained its clarity. Earth Origin Stage Level 2. To be able to advance to the next level of the Earth Origin Stage in just over 300 years. If anyone knew about this, they would be so shocked that their jaws would drop. The main reason why he was able to achieve such a speed was because he had perfected the Prajna Nirvana Sutra on the third wall of the prison-suppressing cauldron. Right now, Su Zimo could absorb and refine 10 elemental spirit stones at the same time with the help of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra. This greatly increased the speed of his cultivation. His experiences in Absolute Thunder City, the Emperor Tomb, and the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range had benefited him greatly. He did not encounter any obstacles and broke through to Earth Origin Stage Level 2. Not only that, at the end of the Sanskrit words on the third wall of the prison-suppressing cauldron, there was a secret Buddhist technique. It was a dermic seal. Impermanence seal. Impermanence of all actions is the life and death dharma. The Sanskrit words on the dermic seal were extremely profound and difficult to understand. Su Zimo would comprehend the dermic seal when he was free. Although he had gained some knowledge, he did not fully comprehend it. The first two chapters of the Prajna Nirvana Sutra were all cultivation techniques. It was not until the third chapter that there was a secret technique inheritance. Needless to say, a secret technique that could become a taboo secret technique definitely had unimaginable power. 10 years ago, Su Zimo had received a response from Wu Dao's original body. Momo had ascended. Originally, Momo had wanted to stay with Wu Dao's original body. However, the lower bound was lacking in resources. Wu Dao's original body could use Wu Dao's furnace to refine the tranquil Cloud King's fruit of Dao bit by bit to improve his cultivation. However, Momo could not do anything about it. If the two of them ascended at the same time in the future, it was very likely that they would be separated. If that was the case, it would be better for Momo to ascend to the upper world as soon as possible, so that she could adapt to the cruel environment there and improve her cultivation as soon as possible. Momo was extremely reluctant, but she knew that it was useless for him to stay with Wu Dao's original body. The cultivation of Wu Dao's original body increased continuously while he stayed on Tianhuang mainland without making any progress at all. The gap between the two of them would only increase in the future. Therefore, Momo ascended 10 years ago and attracted the 39 heavenly tribulations. Thankfully, she managed to transcend them. As for which realm she ascended to, Wu Dao's original body could not sense it either. With the departure of Momo, apart from some of Su Zimo's old friends who could not ascend, most of them had already left Tianhuang mainland. As time passed by, the era that belonged to Wu Huang gradually came to an end as well. After Momo left, Wu Dao's original body stood in Pingyang town and looked in the direction of the capital of Great Zhou in silence with a forlorn expression. After all these years, Ji Yaoshua's cultivation realm was still stuck at the void reversion realm. Wu Dao's original body had once found many spatial nodes of Tianhuang mainland and left Tianhuang mainland to head to other small worlds in search of countless rare treasures that could not be found in Tianhuang mainland. He would then get Momo to send them over for Ji Yaoshua to consume. However, Ji Yaoshua's lifespan did not show any signs of increasing, and her cultivation realm was stagnant as well. Void reversions had a lifespan of 5,000 years. By now, Ji Yaoshua should only have about 2,000 years left in her lifespan. Wu Dao's original body stood silently for a long time before sighing and returning to his house to cultivate in seclusion. After all these years of cultivation, he had already exhausted all the spirit essence stones he obtained from the experts of the upper world. Another fate wheel was added behind him, and there were now 6 fate wheels. Through his connection with Qinglian's true body, Wu Dao's original body could roughly deduce that the realm of 6 fate wheels had already reached the level of an earth immortal in terms of strength. Time flew like an arrow, and the sun and moon flew like a shuttle. After Su Zimo reached the 2nd level of Earth Origin Realm, he continued his seclusion. In the 516th year, Su Zimo made another breakthrough and reached the 3rd level of Earth Origin Realm. Su Zimo continued his seclusion. The black crow flew and the rabbit flew. The stars moved. Another few hundred years passed. On this day, it had been more than 1,300 years since Su Zimo entered seclusion in Stellaris sect. Chapter 2052. Tianhuang Mainland. It had been more than 2,000 years since Wangu Wu Huang ascended. As the paragons and monster incarnates of that generation ascended one after another, that era had completely come to an end. Time passed and eras changed. Although it had only been 2,000 years, due to the coexistence of the 10,000 races created by Wangu Wu Huang and the prosperity of the Wu Dao, countless paragons appeared in Tianhuang mainland. However, due to the war of the 10,000 races and the calamity of the Blood Fiend, too many experts of the 10,000 races died. If Tianhuang mainland wanted to truly recover to its peak, it would need to continue recuperating for a long time. In Tianhuang mainland, no one knew that Wu Dao's true body was still in the lower realm. At that moment, Wu Dao's true body was in an unknown small world, searching for natural treasures. However, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and sensed something. Wu Dao's true body turned to look in the direction of Tianhuang mainland and frowned slightly. He had left behind a few spirit consciousnesses in Tianhuang mainland and sensed an abnormality in Tianhuang mainland. Something happened. The Wu Dao of Tianhuang mainland was prosperous, and the 10,000 races coexisted. Even the few primordial races of the past had lost their edge. Logically speaking, there should not be any threat. However, after pondering for a moment, Wu Dao's true body was still worried and decided to return to Tianhuang mainland. The small world he was in was rather far from Tianhuang mainland, and it would take some time for him to return. Tianhuang mainland, far west. Suddenly, an incomparably powerful energy fluctuation came from the skies above Kunlun ruins. Bang! 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 A deafening boom reverberated through the clouds, and the small world of Tianhuang mainland trembled slightly. The 4 regions in one continent shook. Raging waves surged in the 3 oceans. The experts of Penglai Island and Divine Phoenix Island came out of seclusion one after another. Most of the experts on Tianhuang mainland sensed something as well. Figures appeared in midair one after another, and looked towards the west. A terrifying energy fluctuation burst forth from the skies above Kunlun ruins. Immediately after, cracking sounds could be heard from the world, as though something was shattering. The next moment, dazzling golden lights burst forth from the direction of Kunlun ruins, illuminating the world. Pust! Many experts of planet Tianhuang gasped in shock. If he wasn't mistaken, there was only one race that could release such golden light and such a powerful aura. Protoss. Moreover, there was a spatial node in the Kunlun ruins that was connected to the godly mainland. Just now, that horrifying cracking sound was most likely the Protoss breaking the seal of this space node. The Protoss had invaded again. Planet Tianhuang was shaken. The situation is critical. Where is Emperor Luo? A shout came from the sky of Tianhuang. No one responded. Where are the other emperors of the immortal martial sect? I'm not sure. The rulers and great ancestors of the various races appeared in midair with bewildered expressions. Among them, Lung Ro, Little Fatty, Shi Jian and Ji Qingtian from Misty Peak also came out of seclusion and flew into the air. The cultivation of Lung Ro and the other 3 had yet to reach the Emperor realm, but they were already at the Ancestor realm. Emperors and patriarchs of the various major factions of the human immortal, Buddhist and fiend sects appeared. Among the primordial races, the witch race was destroyed in the War of the 10,000 Races, and the Bloodvine race was destroyed by the Blood Demon Dao Lord. Right now, only the dragons, Barbarian Kuan, Heavenly Eye, Rakshasa and Golden Crow races were left. The emperors of the primordial races had already appeared as well. Among the emperors of the Dragon Clan, there were the Azure Dragon Emperor and the Cloud Dragon Emperor. They were both old friends of the Martial Emperor. The Blue Dragon Emperor was Long Tsang with the bloodline of a 5-clawed divine dragon. The Cloud Dragon Emperor was once Wu Huang's Mount Solitary Cloud. Long Ran had already ascended, and the current dragons were in charge of the Blue Dragon Emperor and Cloud Dragon Emperor. Everyone, come to the Heavenly Mystery Palace for a meeting. Right then, a voice entered everyone's ears. That voice came from the storyteller of this generation. The storyteller of this generation was once Lin Xuanji's disciple, and had already entered the Emperor realm. The emperors of the 10,000 races tore through the void one after another, and descended into the Heavenly Mystery Palace. What's going on? The Barbarian Emperor frowned. Shen Huang from the Protoss's side has an extremely good relationship with Wu Huang. Why did he suddenly break the seal and barge into Tianhuang mainland? The Shen Huang that the Barbarian Emperor mentioned was Nian Qi. Little Fatty shook his head. Given Nian Qi's talent and cultivation, if nothing goes wrong, he would have ascended to the upper world long ago. The current Shen Huang of the God mainland should be someone else. What should we do now? The Luo Emperor is nowhere to be seen. I've just checked the immortal martial sect, and it's almost empty as well. The storyteller looked at everyone and asked in a deep voice. The Luo Emperor was an expert who rose in the past 1,000 years. His name was Lo Lo. With a spirit root, he broke the norm and could cultivate both immortal and martial arts, eventually becoming an emperor. It could be said that after Wu Huang's era, the Luo Emperor was the most dazzling monster incarnate. The immortal martial sect that the Luo Emperor established recruited more than half of the martial artists in Tianhuang mainland, and became the largest sect and faction in Tianhuang mainland. Under normal circumstances, the Luo Emperor should be the one to step forward and lead the 10,000 races of Tianhuang mainland to defend against the enemy. He was the only one who had that prestige. But now, The Luo Emperor was nowhere to be found, and the immortal martial sect was empty. Everyone was at a loss. The Cloud Dragon Emperor said with a grim expression, "The Protoss is aggressive this time round. I'm afraid they won't let this matter rest." In the primordial era, the Protoss had once invaded Tianhuang mainland and was intercepted by the Divine Ho race in Kunlun ruins, suffering heavy losses. In reality, there was an irreconcilable blood feud between the two continents. It was only because of Nian Qi's relationship with the Protoss during Wu Huang's era that the relationship between the two continents eased. Now that Nian Qi has ascended and a new emperor is born in the God mainland, I'm afraid there's no longer anything to worry about, Ji Qingtian said in a deep voice. The Blue Dragon Emperor said in a deep voice, "We have no way out. We can only fight. A great war is about to break out in Tianhuang mainland. At that time, blood will flow like rivers and countless living beings will be destroyed." Sigh, the storyteller sighed. Tianhuang mainland had yet to recover from the War of the 10,000 Races and the Blood Demon calamity. Now it was going to face such a calamity. "We might be able to fight," Shi Jian said. "For the past 2,000 years, Wu Dao has been prosperous, and almost all living beings in Tianhuang mainland can cultivate. As for the top combat strength, we have the Luo Emperor to hold down the fort." Everyone nodded. At the same time, a bloody battle broke out in Kunlun ruins. The Protoss army charged out of the Rainbow Cave in Kunlun ruins. There was almost an endless number of them, and every single one of them had a powerful aura. The Protoss was innately powerful like gods. The men were handsome and tall while the women were unparalleled in beauty. Every single one of the Protoss army wore armor, with swords by their waists, and spears in their hands, as they charged at the defensive line of Kunlun ruins continuously. There were tens of thousands of conjoint body mighty figures in the Protoss army alone. Among them, there were more than 1,000 patriarchs of the Protoss. And this number was still increasing. The Kunlun ruins was guarded by the Kunlun race all year round. However, they could not withstand the terrifying attacks of the Protoss. The reason why the Kunlun ruins of the primordial era was able to stop the Protoss army was because of two gods. More than 2,000 years ago, the reason why the Protoss could be stopped was because of Wu Huang and Night Spirit. But now, there was only a group of Kunlun race left guarding the Kunlun ruins. The defensive line of Kunlun ruins could not last long. Chapter 2053. Corpses were everywhere in the God-slaying canyon, and blood flowed like rivers. The Protoss army seemed to have condensed into a golden spear, as they charged continuously in the God-slaying canyon. The Kunlun race was bathed in blood. They could not retreat, nor did they dare to retreat. Behind Kunlun ruins was Tianhuang mainland. Once Kunlun ruins fell, the Protoss army would march straight in and trample all over Tianhuang mainland. More innocent living beings would die under the Protoss's sword and spear. Furthermore, all the Kunlun race believed that the reinforcements of Tianhuang mainland would definitely rush over to help. In the sky, 3 sovereigns of the Kunlun clan were fighting a fierce battle with the sovereign of the God clan. This sovereign of the God race was extremely young and high-spirited. He looked like he was less than 20 years old, but the qi and blood in his body were strong and emitted a dazzling golden light. Even though he was bare-handed, he could fight against 3 sovereigns, and even had the absolute upper hand. The ancestor of the Kunlun race was also fighting against the many ancestor gods opposite him. The battle was tragic. Most humans of the same level would find it difficult to resist the power of the Protoss. This was the natural difference between bloodlines and physiques. In Wu Huang's era, most of the paragons and monster incarnates who had experienced the War of the 10,000 Races and the Blood Demon calamity had already ascended. Although the current Tianhuang mainland was thriving and full of vitality, it was only recuperating after the calamity. It was far from being as powerful as Wu Huang's era. The true top experts of the Protoss had yet to appear. Now, only a young emperor of the God clan had shown up. Even so, the Kunlun race could no longer hold on, and were retreating in the God-slaying canyon. Before long, their defense line would collapse. Under the lead of the experts, the armies of the various major factions of Tianhuang mainland began to gather towards Kunlun ruins. Battle cries shook the sky. The Great Zhou Empire also quickly gathered their army and rushed to the Kunlun ruins battlefield. Right at this moment, a figure appeared in the sky above Kunlun ruins. This person wore a black robe. He didn't look old, but his figure was tall and straight. He was tall and mighty, and he was steady like a lofty mountain. He was like a god that couldn't be offended. His entire body emitted a powerful aura, and his pressure enveloped the surroundings, causing others to be unable to help but prostrate themselves in worship. After Wu Huang, the emperor with the highest reputation and battle prowess in Tianhuang mainland, Lolo, in order to temper himself and cultivate Dao techniques, he had once entered the territories of several primordial races alone, fought with them, and retreated unscathed. He cultivated both martial arts and immortal arts, and became an emperor in less than 1,000 years. He dominated Tianhuang region, and had never been defeated by anyone of the same level. He established the immortal martial sect and recruited geniuses under the heavens, inviting experts from the various races. In just a short 500 years, the immortal martial sect became the strongest sect in Tianhuang. It could be said that Emperor Luo was the most dazzling legend since Wu Huang's era. Wangu Wu Huang didn't establish his own sect. He only accepted 2 disciples. Kitsune and Carefree pursued the Tao wholeheartedly, and ascended without establishing their own sections. Every 50 years, the Emperor Luo would preach about the Tao, and attract many martial artists of Tianhuang mainland to follow him. Immortal martial sect grew stronger as well. In fact, some people even said that Wangu Wu Huang's creation of the Wu Dao was the Emperor Luo's inheritance of his predecessors, pushing Wu Dao to its peak. It's the Emperor Luo. The Emperor Luo is here. When the cultivators of the Kunlun race and the thousands of races below caught sight of the figure in midair, they were excited and cheered. The atmosphere in Heavenly Mystery Palace was tense. Many emperors and patriarchs who were discussing how to fight sensed something as well, and arrived in midair, looking towards the west. In the skies above Kunlun ruins stood a dazzling figure that no one could ignore. The Emperor Luo has appeared. Storyteller heaved a sigh of relief. Ji Qingtian nodded slightly as well. With the Emperor Luo around, Tianhuang mainland will have a fighting chance. The immortal martial sect led by the Emperor Luo alone is enough for the Protoss to handle. Right then, in the skies above Kunlun ruins, the Emperor Luo waved his sleeves gently, and an exquisite palace appeared. It expanded continuously and hovered in midair, emitting an incomparably domineering aura. It's the Emperor Luo's immortal martial palace, the Cloud Dragon Emperor said. By the looks of it, the cultivators of immortal martial sect should all be in the immortal martial palace. However, I wonder what the Emperor Luo's intentions are. Just as the crowd was discussing amongst themselves, the cultivators within the immortal martial palace began to walk out one after another. However, many of the cultivators had ugly expressions on their faces. Their willpower was low, and they looked like they had come to a realization. Strange. Suddenly Little Fatty mumbled. There seemed to be much fewer experts in immortal martial sect. The others noticed this as well. Some of the patriarchs and emperors of immortal martial sect did not appear, and their whereabouts were unknown. Perhaps the Emperor Luo has a backup plan? Shi Jian guessed. Due to the distance, the experts of Heavenly Mystery Palace could not see the expressions of the cultivators in the immortal martial palace. Let's pass down the order and gather the experts of the sect. We'll move as soon as possible and head to Kunlun ruins to fight the Protoss. The storyteller said in a deep voice. All right, many experts tore through the void and returned to their respective sections. They gathered the experts of their sects and headed towards Kunlun ruins. At the same time, in the skies above Kunlun ruins, the Emperor Luo looked at the immortal martial sect cultivators who walked out and said indifferently, "Let's do it." Soon, a group of cultivators stood out from the crowd and headed towards the battlefield with a murderous aura. When the Kunlun people saw this, they were invigorated. The Emperor Luo looked at the remaining immortal martial sect cultivators and shook his head. Today is a foregone conclusion. You guys have no way out. The only way to survive is to listen to my orders." With that, the Emperor Luo's figure flashed and arrived above the battlefield of the emperors. The three emperors of the Kunlun race were already somewhat overwhelmed by the charge of the young Shen Huang. Now that the Emperor Luo had arrived, they were finally relieved. "Emperor Luo, watch out. This man is—" Before one of the Kunlun race emperors could finish speaking, the Emperor Luo struck him on the back with a punch. Bang! The Emperor of the Kunlun race widened his eyes with a blank expression. His eyes were filled with confusion and disbelief. In the next moment, the body of the Kunlun race's emperor instantly exploded and turned into a cloud of blood mist. His essence spirit was also shattered by the power of the Emperor Luo's punch. The other two Kunlun race emperors were stunned. The Emperor Luo did not stop there. With a backhand slap, he slapped the face of the second Kunlun race emperor. The emperor's head was blown apart, and his essence spirit was destroyed. In less than a breath's time, two Kunlun race emperors died in the hands of the Emperor Luo. "Emperor Luo, you!" The last Kunlun race emperor had just reacted with a furious expression when he felt a sharp pain in his chest. A huge golden fist came out of his body and smashed his heart apart. The young Protoss Emperor scoffed coldly. Exerting strength with both hands, he tore the body of the Kunlun race emperor into two. The essence spirit of the emperor turned into a streak of light, wanting to escape. The Emperor Luo's gaze shifted and landed on the essence spirit of the Kunlun race emperor. The essence spirit of the person froze. Crack, crack, crack. The next moment, the essence spirit of the Kunlun race emperor shattered and he died. Chapter 2054. In the blink of an eye, 3 Kunlun race sovereigns fell in the hands of the Luo emperor. The blood of the sovereigns dyed the sky of the Kunlun ruins red. The Kunlun race patriarchs who were still fighting with the ancestor gods in Midair were stunned and could not react for a moment. At this moment, the immortal martial sect's patriarch led many martial artists and descended. They charged into the crowd and started a massacre on the Kunlun race. Spells, mystic arts, and Dharma treasures exploded, causing a bloody storm in the God-slaughtering canyon. The Kunlun race's defense line guarding the God-slaughtering canyon was already in danger under the attack of the Protoss army. Now, many Wu Dao experts of the immortal martial sect charged from the back, causing the Kunlun race to be attacked from the front and back. The defense line collapsed instantly. In just the first 10 breaths of contact, countless Kunlun race members died on the spot without knowing why. These living beings guarding the borders of Tianhuang mainland did not know why the Luo emperor and the immortal martial sect attacked them. The God-slaughtering canyon had fallen. The Luo emperor looked at the remaining Wu Dao experts beside the immortal martial palace. He narrowed his eyes and said slowly, "Why? Aren't you guys going to attack?" Sigh. An ancestor realm martial artist sighed and descended from midair, charging towards the Tianhuang mainland cultivators on the other side of the Kunlun ruins. Seeing this, the other immortal martial sect cultivators also attacked. In the Kunlun ruins, many sect cultivators who had just arrived were shocked when they saw this scene. One must know that half of the Wu Dao experts on Tianhuang mainland had joined the immortal martial sect and were all under the Luo emperor. But now, these Wu Dao experts had turned around and charged towards them. "Fellow Daoist Lin, what are you doing? The Protoss army is at the God-slaughtering canyon. Why are you attacking the people of Tianhuang mainland?" Some cultivators were shocked and furious and could not help but question loudly. "Junior Sister Yuan, are you crazy?" Someone shouted. When the Wu Dao experts of the immortal martial sect heard these words, their eyes were filled with guilt. But in the end, they gritted their teeth and went on a killing spree. Originally, they were all people of Tianhuang wasteland. But now, in the crisis of the Protoss invasion, they were fighting against each other and killing each other. In an instant, the sounds of killing and wailing shook the sky in the Kunlun ruins. The rulers of the Heavenly Mystery Palace, the Sword Sect, the Shura Sect, the Vajra Temple, Divine Phoenix Island, and other major sects and forces, as well as the rulers of all races, had just gathered the powerhouses of their sects and were about to head to the Kunlun ruins to fight the Protoss when they saw this scene. The sovereigns were shocked, and they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. How could this be? The storyteller stared blankly at the tragedy in the Kunlun ruins and could not recover for a moment. There was only one thought left in his mind. However, this speculation was too horrifying. He didn't dare to believe it. Emperor Luo has betrayed Tianhuang region. The Blue Dragon Emperor's eyes were filled with boundless killing intent as he gritted his teeth and spoke with hatred. Lung Ro was still unwilling to believe it. She muttered softly, "This can't be right? Maybe this Luo Huang is one of the Protoss in disguise?" "That's impossible." Little Fatty shook his head. "If it's one of the Protoss in disguise, there are 10 emperors in the immortal martial sect. How can they not see through Luo's true identity? To think that the Luo Huang would choose to side with the Protoss at this critical juncture." Ji Qingtian gripped his fists tightly in pain. Shi Jian frowned. Even if the Luo Huang is ambitious, the immortal martial sect is filled with people who cultivate the Wu Dao. Why would they betray Tianhuang region with him? The era of the eternal Wu Huang has passed after all. The storyteller shook his head. This era is the era of the Luo Huang. There are many martial artists in the immortal martial sect who benefited from the Luo Huang's lectures on the Dao and are his followers. Time passed and eras changed. The eternal Wu Huang ascended and was no longer in Tianhuang region, causing his influence to weaken day by day. However, the rise of the new emperor affected the entire Tianhuang region. However, no matter how great the Luo Huang's influence is, it's impossible for all the martial artists in the immortal martial sect to betray him, Lung Ro said. Suddenly, the Cloud Dragon Emperor said, "Almost half of the cultivators in the immortal martial sect have disappeared. I reckon that those cultivators who rebelled against the Luo Huang are most likely dead." Ah! The emperors were shocked. Initially, everyone was smug. However, when they saw the betrayal of the Luo Huang region, everyone knew one thing. The true calamity of Tianhuang region had arrived. This was even scarier than the ancient war and blood demon calamity. In the ancient era, there was the human emperor. More than 2,000 years ago, there was the Wu Huang. But now, the only person they could rely on in Tianhuang region, the Luo Huang, had suddenly betrayed them and joined forces with the Protoss. The Luo Huang was the strongest emperor after the era of the eternal Wu Huang. He comprehended 6 supreme mystic skills and was comparable to the ancient human emperor. None of the emperors present were a match for him. Furthermore, the immortal martial sect was the largest faction in Tianhuang region. Even if they lost half of their experts, their strength was far from what the major sects and factions could contend against. Furthermore, half of the experts of the Wu Dao in the world were under the Luo Huang. How were they going to fight this battle? "Let's go to Kunlun ruins and fight it out with the Protoss," the Blue Dragon Emperor said in a deep voice. "I was just about to ask the Luo Huang region why he betrayed Tianhuang region when he cultivated the Wu Dao," Ji Qingtian said in a deep voice. Everyone's hearts were heavy, but they did not give up. They led their armies and descended upon Kunlun ruins. At that moment, Kunlun ruins had already turned into a shura filled with corpses with a torrential blood aura. The Protoss army increased in number. 8 Protoss emperors had already appeared. The Tianhuang region army could not defend at all and was routed, leaving behind billions of corpses. Kunlun ruins was lost. The Cloud Dragon Emperor, Little Fatty, Storyteller, and the other emperors led the experts of their respective sects and descended. When they saw that, all of them had sorrowful and shocked expressions. In midair, the Luo Huang had an indifferent expression, as though the lives of the billions of living beings beneath his feet were not worth mentioning to him. "Lo, look what you've done!" The Cloud Dragon Emperor hollered with a furious expression. Why? Although Ji Qingtian was only at the ancestor realm, he stood out at that moment and questioned the Luo Huang loudly. Araki Takashi established a Dao and imparted martial arts to all living beings. Why did you betray Tianhuang region and become the butcher knife of the Protoss when you cultivated the Wu Huang's inheritance and slaughtered the living beings of Tianhuang region? Wu Huang's inheritance. Suddenly, Lolo smiled and looked at the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others. I'd like to ask everyone, who among the emperors in this generation can fight me? The Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others were silent. Among them, they had comprehended at most 5 supreme divine powers. However, Lolo had comprehended as many as 6 supreme divine powers and cultivated both immortal and martial arts. His combat strength was terrifying, and no one was a match for him. Luo'eo continued, with my combat strength, even in the primordial age, I can be considered a top expert. I can stand shoulder to shoulder with a human emperor and a martial emperor. So what? Storyteller said in a deep voice. Human emperor. Wu Huang has once made immortal contributions for Tianhuang region and is admired for all generations to come. However, no matter how strong you are, you're still a sinner of Tianhuang region. Ha 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 ha. Lolo burst into laughter and glared at the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others coldly. You can't blame me for this. Tianhuang region can't tolerate me. You guys are the ones who forced me to do this. Chapter 2055. A bunch of nonsense. The Cloud Dragon Emperor sneered. You were the leader of all the emperors of Tianhuang region. The immortal martial sect was also the leader of all the major sections. Even the Heavenly Mystery Palace was second. Since when couldn't Tianhuang region accommodate you? How could we force you? Not only the Cloud Dragon Emperor, but even the other emperors and patriarchs were confused. They didn't know why Lolo said that. Only the storyteller frowned slightly, as if he thought of something. Haha, you forgot so quickly. Lolo looked at the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others with a cold smile. The storyteller asked slowly, are you talking about the time when you wanted to confer the title of Wu Huang? When Lolo was conferred the title of emperor, he wanted to confer the title of Wu Huang. But he was stopped by the storyteller, the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others. Although Lolo was the most dazzling genius after Wu Huang's era, he was far inferior to Wu Huang in terms of experience and battle strength. Then, Lolo talked about martial arts and attracted many martial artists of Tianhuang region to follow him. The immortal martial sect became stronger and stronger, and Lolo's cultivation in the immortal martial Dao and immortal martial Dao also improved. Not long after, he had already comprehended 6 supreme abhijanas. Such battle strength was comparable to the human emperor. Lolo took the initiative to mention the title of Wu Huang again. At this time, in terms of battle strength, no one in Tianhuang region was his match. However, when all the sovereigns gathered, almost no one agreed to this matter. Even the primordial clans who had a blood feud with the martial emperors disagreed. The sovereigns still advised Luo'eo to give up the title of martial emperor. In everyone's hearts, there was only one Wu Huang in Tianhuang region, and that was Su Zimo. Although Lolo's later achievements were great, it was difficult for him to bear the title of Wu Huang. At that time, Lolo and the emperors parted on bad terms. Now that the storyteller brought up the past, all the emperors were slightly startled. Could it be that because of this matter, Lolo wanted to lead the wolf into the house and slaughter all the people of Heaven Wasteland domain? I can't even touch Wu Huang's name. And you still say that you respect me? Lolo sneered. The Azure Dragon Emperor cursed. You're crazy. If I don't give you the title Wu Huang, you'll betray planet Tianhuang and the human race? I'm not a human to begin with. How can I betray you? Lolo said indifferently. Half of the blood of the Protoss flows in my body. It's just that none of you know. All the emperors were shocked. Lolo's matter was actually hidden from everyone. Therefore, it was easy to understand why Lolo could rise in Infinite Wasteland region in such a short time, be invincible, and eventually be crowned emperor. I don't have any prejudice against the human race or the Protoss. I grew up in Infinite Wasteland region, and even in the depths of my heart, my feelings for Infinite Wasteland are deeper. Lolo shook his head and said, however, you stopped me twice from giving Wu Huang the title, which disappointed me too much. It was you who pushed me to the side of the Protoss. The calamity of Infinite Wasteland today is all because of you. Haha. Little Fatty sneered. How laughable. Just because of the title, you broke off with Infinite Wasteland and abandoned the people of Infinite Wasteland. This also proves that our actions back then were right. You don't deserve the title Wu Huang at all. Lo glared at little Fatty and said coldly, whether I'm worthy or not, it's not up to you to decide. Half of Wu Dao's experts on Infinite Wasteland domain are under my command. When you're dead, I'll be Wu Huang. Where are the others from the immortal martial sect? Although the storyteller had already guessed, he still couldn't help but ask, Yu Huang, Dragon, Wu Huang, Emperor Wuxia and the others? Including Lo, the immortal martial sect had a total of 10 emperors. And now behind Lo, there were only 6 of them left. When the 6 emperors of the immortal martial sect heard this, their countenances darkened as they lowered their heads. Lo smiled and casually said, I gathered all the cultivators of the immortal martial sect in the immortal martial palace. The immortal martial palace is my natal treasure. In there, with a single thought, I'll be able to kill all the living beings inside. Those who resisted me have already been buried in the immortal martial palace. Many cultivators of Infinite Wasteland domain were enraged when they heard this. Lo, you cultivated the inheritance of Wu Huang, yet you betrayed Infinite Wasteland domain, forgetting your ancestors and slaughtering the people of Wu Dao. You're worse than a dog or a pig. One of the old ancestors of Wu Dao couldn't hold it in any longer. He stood out and cursed loudly. Emicham? Lo's gaze turned, landing on the old ancestor of Wu Dao. Careful, the Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others hurriedly warned, but it was already too late. The forehead of the old ancestor of Wu Dao was directly penetrated by Lo's gaze. His primordial spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. Lo's attack came without any warning. The Cloud Dragon Emperor and the others couldn't save him in time. Lo, there are millions and millions of Araki Takeshi. Can you kill them all? Lo, you've forgotten your ancestors. You're worse than a dog or a pig. You're not even fit to carry the shoes of Wu Huang. Lo's killing didn't deter the cultivators of Infinite Wasteland domain. Instead, more and more people of Wu Dao stood out and shouted angrily. In an instant, the army of Infinite Wasteland domain was riled up. Their battle cries shook the sky, waiting for the emperors of Infinite Wasteland domain to give the order. You only have 2 paths. Submit or die. Lo looked at the emperors of Infinite Wasteland domain and shook his head slightly. He said disdainfully, with just you guys, who is my opponent? Moreover, I have the army of Protoss behind me. The emperors also knew that Infinite Wasteland domain was doomed in this battle. But how could the people of Infinite Wasteland domain give up without a fight? The emperors looked at the immortal martial sect behind Lo. If they could make these cultivators of the immortal martial sect stand on the side of Infinite Wasteland domain, they might still have a fighting chance. But the remaining cultivators of the immortal martial sect were either indebted to Lo or were afraid of Lo's methods. Who would dare to stand out? Those who were hot-blooded and didn't fear death had already been killed by Lo. Lung Ro looked at the 6 emperors of the immortal martial sect behind Lo. She looked at the many Wu Dao experts of the immortal martial sect and said in a low voice, among you, how many of you don't have spiritual roots? Because of Wu Huang's Dao, you were able to enter the cultivation world and achieve what you have today. The people of the immortal martial sect were silent. The 6 emperors averted their eyes. They didn't even dare to look at the people of Infinite Wasteland domain. Lung Ro continued, as people of Infinite Wasteland domain and cultivators of the Wu Dao, how can you not distinguish between right and wrong and help the evildoer? A trace of restlessness appeared in the immortal martial sect, but it wasn't obvious. Although the hearts of many cultivators were shaken, under Lo's pressure, no one dared to stand out. The immortal martial sect's Emperor Feng sighed and said, I know what you said is right, but I can achieve what I have today, because of Emperor Luo's guidance. Emperor Feng lowered his head and couldn't continue. His heart was in great torment. Another Crimson Emperor's expression dimmed. He also said, it's not that we don't know what's right and wrong, but Emperor Luo saved my life back then. Lo, what are you still dawdling for? At this moment, the young Protoss Emperor led the Protoss army and galloped over. Thousands of horses galloped, and their aura was like a rainbow. At this moment, the Protoss had already sent 8 emperors to Infinite Wasteland Domain. Lolo looked at the people of Infinite Wasteland Domain with a cold expression. He slowly raised his hand and was about to give the order. A great battle was about to break out. Chapter 2056. All martial artists of Tianhuang Mainland, heed my command. Suddenly, a voice sounded from the back of the Tianhuang Mainland army. A dignified woman in pale yellow robes stepped through the void with a green badge in her hands. She walked towards the front of the battlefield with a resolute gaze. The woman's robe was already somewhat old, and its color was even somewhat white. However, when she wore it, it still couldn't conceal her noble temperament. It's the Empress of Great Zhou, Sister Yaoxue. Everyone from Tianhuang Mainland recognized the woman immediately. It was the Empress of Great Zhou, Ji Yaoxue. After so many years, Ji Yaoxue's cultivation realm did not increase much, and was only at the void reversion realm. However, she did not show any fear in the face of the many emperors and patriarchs. Sister Yaoxue, what are you doing here? Little Fatty hurried over and said in a deep voice, a huge battle is about to break out here. It's too dangerous. None of them had a deep relationship with Ji Yaoxue. However, Little Fatty and the others knew that Ji Yaoxue had a close relationship with Su Zimo in the past, and could not bear to involve her in this matter. I'm here to deliver this badge. Ji Yaoxue raised the green badge in her hands above her head and shouted, Wu Huangling is here. Martial artists of the world, heed my command. Everyone could clearly see the words Araki Takeshi on the green badge. Wu Huangling. In the cultivation world, there had always been a rumor that before Wu Huang ascended, he left behind a badge for his eldest disciple Kitsune. This command token was called the Martial Monarch Command token by the later generations. It was rumored in the cultivation world that after Baiming Shui ascended, no one knew where the token went. Nobody expected that such an important badge would be in the hands of the Empress of Great Zhou. No one knew exactly what use the Martial Emperor medallion had. However, this token had an extremely important symbolic meaning to the martial artists of Heaven Wasteland Domain. Seeing this order was like seeing Wu Huang himself. Wu Huangling was to Wu Huang what the Mortal Emperor Palace was to the Mortal Emperor. Many martial artists of Infinite Wasteland Domain were invigorated when they saw the token. This azure token seemed to emit a kind of bizarre magical power, making the numerous martial artists feel fearless in their hearts, able to press forward with indomitable will. What is Wu Dao? Ji Yaoxue stared at the experts from the immortal martial sect, as she asked in a light voice. Without waiting for anyone to answer, Ji Yaoxue said, I have never cultivated Wu Dao, but I have heard from Wu Huang that the most important thing about Wu Dao is not the cultivation method, but the will of Wu Dao, the will of Wu Dao. Although Ji Yaoxue was only at the void reversion realm, all the martial artists in the world listened quietly with the Wu Huangling in her hands. Many cultivators looked at the martial royal medallion with a hint of passion in their eyes. It was as if they had returned to the days when they were practicing martial arts and had stepped onto the path of cultivation. The situation was quietly undergoing a change. For some reason Lo felt uneasy. He realized that he had to snatch Wu Huangling back and stop Ji Yaoxue from continuing. Die! Lolo's figure flashed, and he arrived beside Ji Yaoxue instantly. Golden blood qi burst forth from his body, and he did not even conceal his Protoss bloodline as he punched out, wanting to kill Ji Yaoxue on the spot. Lolo did not hold back at all with that punch. Ji Yaoxue was only a void reversion, and could not defend against the attack of an emperor at all. Just the wind from Lolo's punch alone was enough to blow her into pieces. Swash! Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of Ji Yaoxue. This time round, the Cloud Dragon Emperor was already prepared. The moment Lolo moved, he had already blocked in front of Ji Yaoxue. At the same time, he released his blood qi and conjured his true form of dragons. His massive dragon body protected Ji Yaoxue behind him tightly. At the same time, the Cloud Dragon Emperor channeled his essence spirit and released a secret skill, extending his sharp dragon claws as well. Bang! The fist and claw collided. The Cloud Dragon Emperor's face was pale, and he did not retreat at all. The sound of bones cracking could be heard from his body, and the dragon scales on his body began to fall off continuously. His dragon body exploded and blood arrows spewed out. Poof! The Cloud Dragon Emperor's expression darkened as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The life force in his body was almost dissipated by Lolo's punch. The difference in strength between the two of them was way too great. If the Cloud Dragon Emperor had retreated and thought of a way to resolve Lolo's punch with external force, he might not have suffered such severe injuries. However, Ji Yaoshua was behind him. He could not take a single step back. Luo Ao was enraged. Just as he was about to attack, Little Fatty, Storyteller, and the other emperors of Heaven Wasteland attacked one after another. They unleashed a series of peerless divine abilities that descended from the sky. Although Lolo had comprehended 6 peerless mystic skills, he did not dare to take on so many of them head-on. He could only retreat and avoid the attacks temporarily. The 6 emperors of Immortal Martial Sect, who were supposed to help him, did not move at all. They were not the only ones. Be it Araki Takashi, or the cultivators of Immortal Martial Sect, everyone was asking themselves the same question. Why was it Wu Dao? What exactly was Wu Dao? Looking at the heavily injured Cloud Dragon Emperor, Ji Yaoshua's eyes were filled with tears as she said loudly, "Wu Dao is courageous and fearless." Everyone's heart trembled. Ji Yaoshua held Wu Huangling in her hand and continued, "Wu Dao is courageous and resolute, straight to the heart. Wu Dao is lofty, quick to repay kindness and revenge. The martial Dao is unyielding. It is resistance. It is the great boldness of going forward despite millions of people." With every sentence Ji Yaoshua said, the blood of the cultivators present became more restless. When the last word was said, the cultivators regained their original hearts, their blood boiling, as they could not help but roar at the sky. The millions of cultivators of Tianhuang continent exploded with unshakable wills. Finally, the wills gathered together and swept out in all directions like raging waves. Looking at this scene, Ji Yaoshua held Wu Huangling in her hand and said loudly, "Lo has betrayed Tianhuang continent and forgotten his ancestors. Today, I ask all the cultivators of the world to punish him. All the cultivators of the world to punish him." These 7 words reverberated between heaven and earth, incessantly ringing in the ears, enlightening even the deaf. At this moment, Lo felt an unprecedented pressure. At the same time, his heart was filled with endless hatred and unwillingness. He had painstakingly built up the Immortal Martial Sect for many years, but it still could not compare to the token of that person who had ascended more than 2,000 years ago. Lo was enraged. He emitted a sharp aura that enveloped the entire area as he asked coldly, "Who dares to kill me?" "Kill." Before Luo Ao could finish his sentence, a loud shout came from behind him. It was the emperor of the Immortal Martial Sect, who had originally submitted to him, who was the first to attack. Lolo was alarmed. He turned around abruptly and repelled the person with a punch. With a sharp gaze, he said slowly, "Crimson Emperor, how dare you kill me?" "Lolo, it's true that you saved my life," the Crimson Emperor said in a deep voice. "However, you shouldn't have betrayed Tianhuang continent and let a wolf into your home. From today onwards, no matter the outcome, I'll kill myself to return your life." The Crimson Emperor's words were filled with an indomitable determination. Emperor Feng stood out as well, and looked at the Cloud Dragon Emperor, Storyteller, and the other emperors of Tianhuang continent. "The 6 of us have to do everything we can to hold back Lolo. As for the Protoss, we can only leave it to you guys." "All right." The emperors of Tianhuang continent were excited. Ji Yaoshua appeared on the battlefield with Wu Huangling, and caused all the cultivators of the Immortal Martial Sect to return to Tianhuang continent. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 2057. At this moment, the Protoss army had also charged over. Their iron hooves were like thunder, bones flew everywhere, and blood chi soared into the sky. "Kill!" The Azure Dragon Emperor gave the order. The cultivators of Tianhuang region and the Protoss army were like 2 huge waves, colliding fiercely, causing countless blood flowers to splatter. In the instant of the collision, countless living beings died on the spot. However, the cultivators of Tianhuang region were fearless. Regardless of their cultivation level, regardless of their combat strength, at this moment, they all condensed into an unshakable will. Fresh blood, broken limbs, magic treasures, abilities, corpses, heads everywhere one looked, there was blood everywhere. It was incomparably tragic. Although the number of emperors on Tianhuang region's side was slightly higher, with over 20 of them, against the 8 emperors of the Protoss, they still couldn't gain the upper hand at all. And the 6 emperors of the immortal martial sect besieging Lo Lo was also surrounded by danger. Lo Lo dual cultivated immortal and martial arts, and also comprehended 6 supreme abilities. His combat strength was heaven-defying. And of the 6 emperors of the immortal martial sect, only the Crimson Emperor and Feng Huang comprehended 5 supreme abilities. As for the other 4, one of them had comprehended 4 rare divine abilities, 2 of them had comprehended 3 rare divine abilities, and one of them had only comprehended 2. The difference in combat strength between the 4 was great. Only the Crimson Emperor and Feng Huang could barely fight Lo Lo. The remaining 4 emperors couldn't withstand Lo Lo's attacks at all. Poof! The battle only lasted for 7 to 8 breaths, and the emperor who comprehended 2 supreme abilities was killed by Lo Lo on the spot, his body and Dao vanishing. After a while, another emperor of the immortal martial sect died, and Lo Lo walked leisurely between the remaining 4 emperors of the immortal martial sect with ease. In Lo Lo's palm, an immortal kingdom condensed, directly imprisoning an emperor within. In the divine kingdom, golden light flashed. In the blink of an eye, an emperor was refined, his body and Dao vanishing. Divine kingdom in the palm. The supreme ability of the Protoss. The difference was too great. The current Lo Lo had half of the Protoss bloodline in his veins. He cultivated both immortal and martial arts, and he had comprehended 6 supreme theurgies. His combat prowess was comparable to that of the human emperor. Even when 6 sovereigns surrounded him, he still managed to kill 3 of them. Crimson Sovereign, Peak Sovereign, I'll give you 2 another chance. Lo Lo said as he fought with the 3 of them. If you submit to me now, I can let bygones be bygones. If Lo Lo wanted to rule Tianhuang mainland in the future, he would also lack some helpers. The Crimson Sovereign and the Peak Sovereign had both comprehended 5 supreme divine arts. Lo Lo couldn't bear to see this happen, and wanted to make use of the 2 of them. Lo Lo, the 2 of us have made up our minds today. You don't have to persuade us anymore. The Crimson Sovereign said, You are cultivating the Wu Dao. We hope that you can rein in the horse at the edge of the cliff, and turn back in time, to fight against the Protoss together, with the living beings of Heaven Wasteland. Hee. As Lo Lo sneered, he waved his hand and killed another person. Of the 6 sovereigns of the immortal martial sect, only the Crimson Sovereign and the Peak Sovereign were left. I'll ask you guys again, submit or die. Lo Lo's expression darkened as he said slowly, Don't blame me for not giving you guys a chance. Right then, a voice suddenly sounded from the battlefield of Kunlun ruins. It seemed to come from the clouds and was high and mighty, looking down on all living beings. To think that you guys haven't taken down Tianhuang mainland yet. You guys are too slow. In the sky above Kunlun ruins, a golden figure appeared. His body shone with a resplendent golden light like a scorching sun. The emperors merely took a glance, and felt a piercing pain in their eyes. They could not even see that person's appearance clearly. However, after that figure appeared in Kunlun ruins, the entire Tianhuang mainland trembled and swayed, letting out a series of sorrowful cries. It was as though even Tianhuang mainland could not withstand that person's aura. Oh, to think that such a strong will would be condensed. Interesting. The golden figure chuckled. God said that there must be light. Right then at the end of Kunlun ruins, the golden figure spoke slowly. Instantly, a golden speck of light descended from the battlefield of the emperors and suddenly bloomed. The golden lights emitted a terrifying aura, and were sharp like golden spears. They easily broke through the divine powers and secret skills of the emperors of Tianhuang mainland, and pierced through their bodies. Poof, poof, poof. The sound of sharp weapons tearing through flesh could be heard on the battlefield. It was a shocking sight for emperors to bleed. The emperors of Tianhuang mainland were enveloped by the golden light. Those who were weak died on the spot. Even the Blue Dragon Emperor, Storyteller, and the other emperors who had comprehended 4 or 5 peerless divine powers were pierced by the golden light. Blood flowed from their wounds, and they fell from midair. Their auras were weak, and their expressions were dispirited. The golden light contained a strange force that their bloodlines and mystical abilities were unable to get rid of. The emperors of Tianhuang mainland were either dead or injured. They were all crippled by a single move from the golden figure. The Crimson Emperor and Feng Huang were already in pools of blood. The 2 of them were unlucky, and their heads were pierced by the golden light. Their essence spirits were shattered, and they could no longer survive. The golden figure stepped on the void and walked over slowly. Although it seemed slow, it arrived in the blink of an eye. Poof! The golden figure took a step forward, and all the cultivators of Tianhuang mainland within the range of his step died, turning into blood mists. Although that step did not seem large, all the cultivators in the area could not escape. With a single step, hundreds of thousands of living beings of Tianhuang mainland turned into dust beneath the golden figure. Life and death were only a single step apart. Be it the Dharma Daojun or the mighty figure patriarchs, no one could escape from the golden figure's footsteps. Poof! The golden figure took a second step. Another hundreds of thousands of living beings of Tianhuang mainland fell. Poof! A third step. The living beings of Tianhuang mainland fell one after another like weeds that were reaped by a sickle. None of them could stand up. A large bloody zone appeared between the Tianhuang mainland army and the Protoss army. It was empty without a single figure standing. The only exception was the blinding figure in midair that could not be looked at directly. The will of Wu Dao that was condensed by the combined efforts of Araki Takashi and the others was also shattered by the golden figure in 3 steps. The hot blood of everyone on Tianhuang mainland gradually cooled down. How could they defend against such an expert in such power? Everyone was filled with despair and fear. Cough, cough. The Cloud Dragon Emperor coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood and murmured, "Everyone come back. There's no need to continue fighting." This was a complete massacre. If they continued fighting, all the living beings of Tianhuang mainland would die here. Greetings, Shenhuang. When the Protoss saw the golden figure, they knelt on one knee and bowed, shouting in unison. Shenhuang descended slowly. The golden light on his body gradually retracted, revealing an incomparably handsome face. His dark blue eyes were like a pair of sapphires in the depths of the ocean, deep and mysterious. On top of Shenhuang's head was a golden crown that was surrounded by a ring of gemstones that shone with a mysterious brilliance. It made Shenhuang look dazzling and incomparably noble. Greetings, Shenhuang. Lo knelt on one knee and bowed. Shenhuang nodded slightly and smiled. Rise, all of you. Chapter 2058. Ji Yaoxue faced Shenhuang without the slightest bit of fear in her eyes as she said in a deep voice. Back then, Nian Qi Shenhuang of the Protoss knelt in the corpse of a god in the god-slaying canyon and swore that he would never step foot into Tianhuang mainland in his lifetime to complete redemption for himself and the Protoss. Why did you disregard the oath that Nian Qi Shenhuang swore and invade Tianhuang mainland again after becoming the new emperor? When they heard that, everyone from Tianhuang mainland broke out in cold sweat for Ji Yaoxue. At that moment, everyone was intimidated by Shenhuang's power. Even the emperors of Tianhuang mainland did not dare to look Shenhuang in the eye, let alone question him loudly, let alone ordinary cultivators. It was a reverence that came from the depths of their bloodlines and souls. Everyone could not control themselves at all. Nobody knew how a void reversion like Ji Yaoxue could possess such courage. This was an existence that was countless times more terrifying than Lo. If Shenhuang were to attack, nobody would be able to defend against him. Perhaps because he could not be bothered to attack a void reversion, Shenhuang merely smiled indifferently. The oath that Nian Qi swore has nothing to do with me. No living being or race is worthy of the Protoss's worship, let alone 2 corpses. The god mainland has failed to invade Tianhuang mainland twice. That is the eternal regret of the Protoss. The reason why I'm here today is to make up for that regret. Shen Huang looked at Ji Yaoshua with his deep blue eyes and said slowly, Nian Qi is a weakling. Only weaklings will back down. As for me, I like to crush everything and kill anyone who resists without mercy. Although Shen Huang was speaking with a smile, everyone could sense the shuddering killing intent behind Shen Huang's smile. The battlefield was silent. Nobody dared to act rashly or speak casually. Lo Lo looked at the people of Heaven Wasteland Domain with a mocking expression and shook his head. I told you, you don't have to resist. With the power that Shen Huang now possesses, no person or realm can resist it. Let alone Wu Huang. Even if Monk Daming, Blood Demon Dao Lord, and Wu Huang from Wu Huang's era worked together, they wouldn't be a match for Shen Huang. Hearing this, Little Fatty suddenly laughed. So, Lo Lo chose to submit to the godly continent, not because of the title Wu Huang, but because you knew that you were no match for Shen Huang. Little Fatty had a mocking expression on his face as he sneered. You're afraid, so you chose to submit to the Protoss. It's nothing. Shen Huang smiled, patted Lo Lo on the shoulder and said, choosing to submit to the strong is a wise move. If you stubbornly resist, you will only become a corpse at my feet. Lo Lo lowered his head slightly to show his obedience. So, you will never be worthy of the title Wu Huang. Ji Yaoshua looked coldly at Lo Lo and suddenly said, What did you say? Lo Lo's face darkened. Ji Yaoshua sneered. No matter how strong the opponent is, Wu Huang will stand up and protect Heaven Wasteland Domain. But you chose to submit and live. Not only do you not deserve the title Wu Huang, you don't even deserve to cultivate Wu Dao. Lo Lo's face was gloomy to the extreme. Ji Yaoshua's words poked at his sore spot. His greatest goal since he started cultivating was to surpass Wu Huang, but he had never been able to gain the recognition of the emperors of Heaven Wasteland Domain. Wu Huang. Lo Lo clenched his fist slightly and gritted his teeth. Wu Huang back then had already ascended. In this life, I am Wu Huang. In the future, I will make a name for myself. Who will admit it? Ji Yaoshua asked with a mocking expression. You won't admit it? Lo Lo laughed. From today onwards, I will rule over all races and become the only master of Heaven Wasteland Domain. I will destroy all the ancient books that record Araki Takashi. The two words Araki Takashi are taboo in Heaven Wasteland Domain. I will kill anyone who dares to mention it. Araki Takashi has already ascended. As time passes by, there will be fewer and fewer people who know about him. If 10,000 years won't do, 20,000, or even 50,000 years will do. I have enough patience. One day, every living being in Heaven Wasteland Domain will think that I was the one who created Wu Dao, and that I am the eternal Wu Huang. Lo Lo's expression was deranged and he looked like he was possessed. Dream on, Ji Yaoshua said coldly. Lo Lo glared at Wu Huangling in Ji Yaoshua's hands and said coldly, Do you think that you can replace Araki Takashi with a lousy badge? Today, I'm going to destroy this badge. The moment he said that, Lo Lo reached out and grabbed Wu Huangling through the void. Caught off guard, Ji Yaoshua's palm was cut a few times by the Wu Huangling and was dripping with blood. Lo Lo gripped Wu Huangling and glared at the words Araki Takashi on it. Enraged, he exerted strength in his palm and squeezed. Lo Lo felt a sharp pain in his palm, and he could not squeeze it. Immediately after, a change happened. Suddenly, a terrifying aura burst forth from Wu Huangling and condensed into a figure in midair. He had black hair and green robes with delicate features. He was no different from Araki Takashi. The eternal Wu Huangling. Everyone exclaimed and were invigorated. Araki Takashi's gaze was cold as he punched Lo Lo, who was in front of him. That punch was filled with the aura of death, and a massive might descended. Although Lo Lo had comprehended the 6 supreme mystic powers, he could not move or resist at that moment. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a golden light appeared beside him, and Shen Huang suddenly appeared in front of Lo Lo. The blood chi in his body surged, and he threw a punch at Wu Huang who was in midair. Boom! The two fists collided, and there was a violent explosion. Heaven and earth shook. The figure of Wu Huang in midair gradually dissipated. Streaks of blood appeared on Shen Huang's face, and his skin was torn. He was almost blown up by that punch. The crown on his head flowed with a milky white brilliance. The wounds on Shen Huang's body healed in the blink of an eye. It's just a phantom formed by a will, Shen Huang said indifferently, and threw Wu Huangling on the ground casually. Lo Lo felt a lingering fear when he saw that. The punch just now had almost shattered the celestial emperor's body. If it had landed on him, he would have died without a doubt. Bitch, you destroy me. Lo Lo snapped back to his senses and was enraged. He glared at Ji Yaoxue with a menacing expression and walked towards her slowly with a murderous aura. Everyone from Tianhuang mainland was shocked. Everyone could tell that Lo Lo was filled with killing intent. At that moment, the emperors of Tianhuang mainland were injured by Shen Huang, and none of them could defend against Lo Lo's attack. Ji Yaoxue merely sneered without fear. She seemed to be mocking that a phantom of Wu Huang's will almost killed Lo Lo. Seeing Ji Yaoxue's smile, Lo Lo was even more furious. What are you laughing at? Lo Lo's expression was cold, and he suddenly let out a deep laugh. Fufufu, I know who you are. You were once Araki Takashi's confidant. You're just a pitiful person. So what if you can't forget him? It's just your wishful thinking. Desolate Marshal has already ascended a long time ago, and has forgotten about you completely. Today is the day you die. Who can save you? Where is Araki Takashi? As he spoke, Lo Lo had already arrived in front of Ji Yaoxue, and was ready to attack. Do you want to see me? Right then, a voice suddenly sounded behind Ji Yaoxue. It was neither loud nor soft and was calm. Chapter 2059. That voice. Ji Yaoxue shuddered and her heart seemed to have stopped beating. Was that him? How could that be? Ji Yaoxue could no longer hear any other sounds beside her ears except for those few words. Do you want to see me? That voice was so real, as though it was whispering beside her ears. However, the more that was the case, the more Ji Yaoxue could not believe it. In fact, she did not even dare to turn back to look. However, her body was trembling slightly, and her eyes were gradually moistening. Some of the older people of Tianhuang mainland, such as the Cloud Dragon Emperor and Little Fatty, were slightly stunned as well. Although more than 2,000 years had passed, that voice sounded familiar. It was as though, when Lo Lo heard that, he could not help but frown with a bewildered expression. Of course, he had not heard that voice before. However, this sentence sounded a little strange. Do you want to see me? Instinctively, Lo Lo recalled what he had said just now. His last sentence seemed to be asking where Araki Takashi was. Could it be? A thought flashed through Lo Lo's mind. However, he immediately rejected it decisively. Impossible. More than 2,000 years ago, Araki Takashi ascended to the upper world under the watchful eyes of the living beings of the 10,000 races. How could he appear here? There were extremely cruel laws of heaven and earth between the lower and upper worlds. There was no way anyone from the upper world could enter the billions of small worlds below casually. That voice definitely did not belong to Araki Takashi. Those thoughts flashed through his mind in the blink of an eye. Right then, a pitch-black hole appeared in the void behind Ji Yaoxue. Thereafter, it expanded gradually, and a figure walked out. The moment this figure stepped foot on Tianhuang mainland, there was complete silence. Whether it was time or space, everything seemed to have come to a standstill at this moment. Everyone from Tianhuang mainland widened their eyes and looked at that figure in disbelief, as though they were looking at a god. The Cloud Dragon Emperor, Little Fatty and the others were even more agitated and opened their mouths, as though they wanted to shout. But with their minds in turmoil, everyone was unable to say a single word for a moment. The moment Lo Lo saw this person, his face turned pale, and he subconsciously took half a step back. Unknowingly, beads of sweat began to seep out of his forehead and slowly slide down. Shen Huang's deep blue eyes turned slightly and landed on this figure. His expression gradually became serious. This figure was wearing a purple robe. His black hair was casually scattered behind his back. His face was handsome and his eyes were clear. There was nothing special about him. However, the Divine Emperor felt an incomparably terrifying aura from this person's body. This person's body seemed to be nurturing a giant volcano that could erupt at any time. He had never met Wangu Wu Huang before. But when he saw the expressions of the people of Heaven Wasteland Domain, he had already vaguely guessed the identity of the visitor. Shen Huang's heart shuddered slightly, before he quickly calmed his thoughts. Ji Yaoxue noticed the change in the expressions of the people around her, but she still did not dare to look back. She was afraid that everything she saw was an illusion that would be shattered in an instant. All of a sudden, Ji Yaoxue felt a warmth on her injured and cold palm. The person behind her came to her side and held her hand gently. "You're injured," the person said softly. Ji Yaoxue only felt a warmth in her palm. She lowered her head and saw that the wound on her palm had healed in the blink of an eye without a single scar left. Ji Yaoxue raised her head and finally saw that familiar face with clear eyes. That was the person who had appeared in her dreams countless times. "Zimo," Ji Yaoxue called out softly. Instantly, tears rolled down her cheeks. Actually, just now, Lolo's words had indeed pierced Ji Yaoxue's heart. At that moment, she was truly disheartened. She also thought that Lolo was right. She was just a pitiful person. If she died, so be it. No one would care. As though he could read Ji Yaoxue's thoughts, Su Zimo said softly, "I didn't leave. I've always been accompanying you in Tianhuang mainland." Ji Yaoxue's heart skipped a beat as many images flashed through her mind. All these years, Momo would bring along many rare treasures each time she visited her. In fact, Momo would find many unheard of treasures that did not belong to this world, and would give them to her, so that she could extend her lifespan and improve her cultivation. Suddenly, she understood that those treasures were all found by Su Zimo. She also understood that there was someone in this world who cared about her. That person had even stayed in Tianhuang mainland for more than 2,000 years for her, protecting her silently and never giving up on extending her lifespan. Ji Yaoxue's eyes glowed once more, and she became dazzling all over. "Wu Huang! Wu Huang is back! Greetings, Wu Huang!" The silence of the crowd of Tianhuang mainland was finally broken as a series of cheers burst forth. The living beings of the 10,000 races were agitated, and the blood of all the martial artists in the world burned with bloodshot eyes. One after another, rows after rows of living beings knelt down and bowed towards Wu Dao's true body. Everyone in Tianhuang mainland was suppressed by Shen Huang's brutal methods and terrifying strength to the point of suffocation. Just as they were left with despair, Wu Huang returned. Seeing this figure, the fear in the hearts of the people of Infinite Wasteland Domain instantly vanished. Everyone knew that Tianhuang mainland would not be destroyed as long as Wu Huang was around. "Wu Huang," Shen Huang murmured softly and glared at Su Zimo fixedly. There was no fear in his eyes, and instead, there was a hint of fighting spirit. He was confident that even if Wu Huang returned, he would be able to kill the latter. Out of the protection of the billions of small worlds, the lower realm naturally had its own unique heaven and earth laws. No matter how high Wu Huang's cultivation realm was, the combat strength he could release in this small world could not exceed a certain limit. Otherwise, he would definitely suffer a backlash from the heaven and earth laws and be killed. Back then, the eternal human emperor's cultivation realm was unparalleled. After ascending to the upper realm hundreds of thousands of years ago, his cultivation realm fell continuously when he returned to the lower realm. Shen Huang was confident that his combat strength had already reached the peak of the billions of small worlds. In the lower realm, no one could defeat him. Shen Huang's gaze was filled with fighting spirit and provocation. However, right from the beginning, Su Zimo had not looked at him at all. It was as though he was someone dispensable in Su Zimo's eyes, and could be ignored. Shen Huang's expression was terrible. This was an immense humiliation for him. Su Zimo turned around and looked at Lolo, who was not far away. Under this gaze, Luo Ao only felt that all the secrets on his body could no longer be hidden. In his heart, he wanted to rid himself of his fear towards Wu Huang. He had comprehended 6 supreme divine powers and cultivated both immortal and martial arts. His combat strength was comparable to the human emperor's, and he was definitely not as weak as this. However, after Su Zimo returned, he could not say a single word. It was as though an invisible aura was pressing down on his chest. and even breathing became extremely difficult. The existence of Wu Dao's true body had far surpassed Lo Lo's understanding. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.